The Age of the Mecha, Fists That Shatter Stars. This video is purely for entertainment and does not infringe on copyrights or laws. The rights to the novel and image belong to the original author. We do not claim ownership. Don't like waiting and want to listen to this fanfic in full now? Subscribe to our Patreon, where you'll find the best fanfics. Chapter 351 Breakthrough. Although Tanyaozu had heard of Li Yi's legend a long time ago, he was still shocked to see Li Yi generate several divine genes as easily as eating and drinking. Although it was impossible to tell how many were generated, it was at least more than one. It is said that Li Yi's self-created bodybuilding method can even affect the soul. Now I see that it is indeed true. Tanyaozu was amazed. It's okay. You'll be more surprised later, Lu Yunsheng smiled. According to my observation, he hasn't simulated more than 30% of my strongest transformation. Tanyaozu's eyes moved slightly, but he obviously grasped something more important. You mean, his method has now simulated 30% of the effect of your strongest transformation? At his current stage, theoretically speaking, he should not be considered a heavenly rank, but just a very special upper-level evolver, right? Lu Yunsheng smiled and said, in fact, I have also counted, studied, and summarized Li Yi's evolutionary path. Do you want to know why he can reach this level as an upper-level evolver and be on par with you and me? Haha, by the way, I have been promoted to the strongest. It should be said that I am on par with you, not me, Tanyaozu said speechlessly. You kid, stop talking nonsense and get serious. I'm serious. What do you think? What do I think? Tanyaozu pondered and said, the characteristic spires, infinite spires, spiral spires, etc. of the heritage ruins have all had a significant impact on his physical body and characteristics. This must be part of the reason. I have also seen the situation of the two heritage ruins in the north and south, and found that these spires are more friendly to people with strong fighting skills and strong reaction speed. Even the infinite spires are not just about practicing the total amount of divinity. It takes a lot of effort to improve the reserve of the physical body and control the details of various divinities, like Li Yi, who challenges at a very low level and then gets a higher challenge result. The blessing he can get is several times the effect of ordinary people. This foundation, coupled with his already perfect fighting skills and strong fighting spirituality, has made him undergo a qualitative transformation. Right, Lu Yunsheng was surprised. You have studied a lot. Tanyaozu smiled and said, to be honest, a young genius rises and his record is even comparable to you and me in the past. How can this situation not arouse curiosity? Don't say me. I believe that everyone who wants to improve will focus on studying his case, and the results prove that, although his growth path is outrageous, it does have traces to follow, but each step can be accurately leaped to the maximum. Lu Yunsheng nodded. You did hit the nail on the head on one of the core reasons, I think, but that's not enough. These can only allow Li Yi's combat power to leap a few small levels, but to leap such a large level, there are still other factors. Tanyaozu thought for a while and asked, are you referring to the composite route he took? Lu Yunsheng said, this is one aspect. The biggest difference between his composite route and that of others is his composite divinity sequence. I estimate that there are more than 7 or 8, among them, wind, fire, and thunder. These three, ice is replaced by the Pluto sequence, and then there are 3 sequences of the King of Heaven and Gaia. Right, that's 6 majors. Tanyaozu nodded and said, so, I remember the records also showed that there was a special mucus creature, and he also obtained the corresponding divine gene from this creature. Then there are all kinds of alien god sequences, such as the life god sequence, which he seems to have dabbled in, but it is not his main practice, so the number should be less. Lu Yunsheng said, yes, there are 7 main practices at least, plus the life god sequence. Let's count it as 8. Maybe he has other backups, but he just didn't get them out. But you know, another reason why normal people don't take the composite route is not that they don't want to, but that their physique can only be compatible with a few divine sequences at most. In addition, due to the limitation of the soul surplus, generally speaking, normal geniuses who practice other divine sequences will be more or less affected by these 2 interferences, and the progress will be greatly reduced. Even those with a talent for the fire god sequence may only have an ordinary talent for their ice god sequence. In order not to interfere, most people practice 3 at most. And this is already a relatively good performance of the God Mecha project, but Li Yi can be compatible with so many sequences at the same time, and still maintain an amazing speed. Do you know what this means? After hearing Lu Yunsheng's analysis, Tanyaozu's eyes changed. Old Lu, You actually analyze something seriously. Veins bulged on Lu Yunsheng's forehead. I'm talking to you seriously, and you're complaining about me? It's funny, isn't it? Tan Yaozu said with a smile. I roughly understand what you mean. You mean, in addition to Li Yi's amazing soul surplus, his physique is also extremely special, so he can accommodate so many chaotic divine genes? But this seems to be just a cliché. Who doesn't know that he is extremely talented and can be called the most talented person in human history? Tisk. Lu Yunsheng shook his head. You are wrong if you look at it from the perspective of talent. Li Yi can practice so many divine sequences at the same time, and can still maintain such rapid progress, and still have extraordinary combat power. The core is that he has a double perfect skill level. In terms of fighting skills, this must be above perfect, and it is more than one level higher. Everyone can see this. On the other hand, his divine control skills have been at the proficient level for a long time, and recently, it has reached the perfect level. I think that when divine control reaches a level above the proficient level, it can also resolve the hidden conflicts brought about by the divine genes. This is also one of the core reasons, and before him, no one has ever been able to do it. Tan Yaozu frowned and said puzzledly, but you and I have already reached the mastery level of divine control, and you have reached the perfect level, right? Lu Yunsheng said, you are wrong. Is Li Yi perfect? He has perfect skills in all the divine sequences he has mastered. And I can only reach the perfect level of control over the related divinities of the Sea King sequence. As for those that I need to learn in the future, I am still far away. Hiss, you kid, what you said actually makes sense, Tan Yaozu said in surprise. I have only reached the mastery level of the divine control of the coordination. As for the other sequences, I just want to condense the Yuan nucleus. But I really don't spend much time training them. This is the core. Li Yi's real strength is not his physique, but his mind that can quickly master anything, Lu Yunsheng said with a smile. Tan Yaozu's pupils shrank slightly, and he turned his head to look at Li Yi, who was still patting himself quickly in the field, but found that the aura on Li Yi's body had changed dramatically again. Li Yi has simulated the strongest transformation to more than 50%. Laolu, with this level, do you think Li Yi will have a strongest body in advance? I can't tell, but he has probably reached the critical point of transformation and is about to break through. As the two discussed, they felt that it was outrageous. Boom. Pure, powerful physical aura suddenly released from Li Yi. Tan Yaozu gritted his teeth, with a complicated expression on his face. Fuck. Chapter 352 Enlightenment. Fuck. Lu Yunsheng glanced at Tan Yaozu in surprise. This guy, did he break down so quickly? Old Tan, what the fuck? Are you jealous because you spent nearly 200 years to reach this level, while others only took 1/10 of your time to surpass you? Lu Yunsheng squinted his eyes and said maliciously. Tan Yaozu said speechlessly, so what if I'm jealous? Aren't you jealous? Lu Yunsheng said frankly, I'm not jealous, I'm just envious. Don't pretend. What am I pretending to be? My good brother has made such a high progress, why should I be jealous? But you, old Tan, are jealous when others want to help you train your body. This is not advisable. I'm just jealous, but I don't have any other thoughts. This is a normal emotion. You should face it directly instead of pretending to be stupid. Haha, I don't know you yet, old Tan. The two talked and laughed. The aura coming from Li Yi became stronger and stronger. Around the training ground, the airflow was automatic without wind, and the cyclones in various places rose on the spot. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. In the violent cyclones, the objects placed around the training ground began to float violently. Crackle, clackle, clackle. Seeing this, both of them stopped arguing with each other and returned to their serious expressions. Tan Yaozu watched for a moment and said, how is it? How many points has Li Yi simulated now? Lu Yunsheng said in a deep voice, about 50%. It seems that 50% is almost the limit, Tan Yaozu said. Even if it is the limit, Li Yi's transformation will definitely come. Lu Yunsheng touched his chin and said, according to the current transformation rhythm, Li Yi is estimated to be able to raise the strength of his physical body to the level of half-step supreme, which is stronger than the 9th stage of the heavenly rank, but weaker than the conventional supreme. Tan Yaozu said enviously, it's good to be young. It's easy to do what I have been striving for most of my life. However, can Li Yi keep up with the current speed of energy absorption? Lu Yunsheng observed for a moment and immediately ordered the AI to quickly deliver the high-quality energy potion produced by the lunar fortress. Soon, AI responded that there might be some energy tubes that don't match Li Yi's constitution. Should they also be sent over? Although they may not match Li Yi's constitution, with his high compatibility, these alien ones should not be a big problem. Let's transfer them over, Tanyaozu said. AI responded and confirmed immediately, and began to mobilize resources quickly. After a while, truckloads of high-quality nutrition tubes were sent over. Li Yi took a look at these nutrition tubes, and immediately activated his divinity, turning into a big hand, grabbing countless nutrition tubes and throwing them into the sky. Immediately, the nutrient solution in the air formed a large piece of transparent water mass connected together. He opened his mouth and sucked it, like a whale swallowing. Whoosh! In an instant, this large mass of nutrient solution turned into a water column and was swallowed by him. Gurgle, gurgle. Li Yi's esophagus and stomach made very clear swallowing and agitation sounds. A large amount of water vapor was evaporated from the outer layer of his skin, leaving only the most essential nutrients. 3.2 The explosive skill was also activated, increasing the efficiency of the force of the slap on himself, thereby increasing the probability of his transformation. The digestive capacity of the intestines and stomach in the body also soared under the blessing of his growth, extreme hardness, super elasticity, deformation, and microelectricity. He followed the same method and drank piles of nutrient solution. Unlike Lu Yansheng, who had already accumulated enough transformation, he forced his body to simulate Lu Yansheng's transformation process, which was equivalent to forcibly raising it. In this process, if there is no deep physical foundation and divine control, there will inevitably be all kinds of problems. But Li Yi is different. With a blessing of nano-vision, brain superlifting technique, and the essence of self, he can control the unexpected factors in the process of body training relatively easily. Time continues to pass. At the beginning of his body training, at the 45th minute, finally bang! With a loud bang, the flesh crackled like a chain of firecrackers, making a fierce friction sound of joints and muscles. He suddenly grew an inch taller, from 1.82 meters to 1.86 meters. The muscles on his body seemed to be made of steel, with layers of bumps and depressions, shining with a bright white cold light. He opened his eyes, and the divine light flashed in his eyes, which made Tanyaozu and Lu Yansheng feel a little depressed. So strong, Tanyaozu was shocked. Lu Yansheng was fine, after all, he had been promoted to the strongest, and his foundation had made Tanyaozu much stronger. Moreover, he was promoted to the strongest with the strength of the first in the heavenly position, so his foundation was even stronger. At the beginning, he was able to fight with a veteran and senior strongest Zhao He for so long, which showed how much his strength increased after the promotion. Good brother, it seems that this time your body has the strength of half a step to the strongest in advance. Lu Yansheng smiled. How about it? Do you want to fight with old Tan, feel his bottom, and then strengthen his body? Tanyaozu, Li Yi was immersed in the wonderful feeling of physical breakthrough, and he was really happy in his heart. He had understood why his body could transform to this level without any obstacles. The biggest core was not this bodybuilding method. In essence, the body and the soul are mutually dependent. The strength of one side will also promote the other side to break through the bottleneck. It was his soul's strength that had already reached the strongest level, and he had more soul surplus. Therefore, when he had means other than divine genes to improve his body, he successfully grew and broke through the bottleneck of the body caused by the number of divine genes, and successfully pulled up the strength of the body. If his soul surplus was not enough, even with a blessing of this Sea King transformation method, he would encounter a bottleneck at a certain stage and would not be able to achieve such a transformation. Before Lu Yansheng, the reason why he was able to be promoted smoothly was also because his soul surplus had already reached the standard, and what he lacked was the balance of his inner strength. When he thought of this, Li Yi seemed to be suddenly enlightened. He had an idea of how to quickly transform his divine genes when they reached the heavenly level or even the strongest stage. There are many ways to reach the destination, and the way of divinity is just the prominent knowledge of this parallel world. Besides divinity, there are more ways, others have one way, and I have a second way. Combining the two, the path is wider, and I can reach the destination faster than others. All kinds of insights and inspirations in his mind flashed and fluctuated quickly like bubbles in the water. It was not until Lu Yansheng spoke that he paid attention to the situation outside. I haven't tried it yet, and I'm not sure what level my current physical body has reached. It may be weaker than what Brother Lu said, or it may be stronger, Lu Yansheng's eyes lit up, and he glanced at Tan Yaozu with ill intentions. Then why not just let old Tan accompany you to test? He needs to use your bodybuilding power. At this time, it is reasonable for him to help, isn't it? Tan Yaozu's face suddenly darkened. Li Yu thought for a while and said, "It seems good. Then I'll trouble Brother Tan." Since he officially confirmed his rank of general, he no longer called everyone superior. Chapter 353 Crushed. Lu Yansheng's eyes lit up and he smiled. This is the best. It's just right for us to see how strong Li Yi's physical strength has reached. Moreover, Li Yi, your physical body has improved so much now. Even if you only rely on your physical body, you can use subtle control to exert unparalleled lethality, right? Even, you can use this to achieve some fantastic operations. The extent of this physical transformation is unknown. However, the most intuitive one should be my five senses, Li Yu said. My blood, nerves, and ki have been strengthened a lot in this transformation. My current five-sense perception ability is indeed the most obvious change. For example, now, I don't need any blessing. I can observe those objects as fine as dust with my naked eyes. With the help of my subtle perception skills, I believe that after a period of training, my subtle accuracy will be able to reach the level of 40 or 50 nanometers. Of course, this is also the case with the help of nanosensors. If not, it will still be a long way off. At most it will be at the micron level. Tan Yaozu's black face quickly turned to normal color, and he praised, not bad. Many smaller cells are about this size. If you can really accurately inject power into this precise dimension, then it's probably not an exaggeration to say that your body is divine. With physical strength alone, I'm afraid you can crush a strong man at the cellular level and make him unable to even recover. Unless you meet a strong man who can recover at the genetic level, your control is invincible. Moreover, when driving a mecha, you can directly defeat the strong with a weak and blast the divine mecha armor that is 1 or 2 levels stronger. After discussing for a while, Tan Yaozu was also eager to try. Although he was used as a gun by Lu Yansheng, to be honest, he really wanted to see Li Yi's strength. Come on, Li Yi, let me see what kind of means you, the first guy in human history to have a divine body, can come up with. That's what I meant. Li Yi nodded. The two walked to the training ground, each stretching their muscles, and stimulating their blood. Tan Yaozu is the oldest among the 3 Xianhui masters, nearly 200 years old, basically the same age as Lin Jianlong. However, he is a Xianhui master after all, and his lifespan is 400 or 500 years. 200 years is not bad, and it is not considered a period of decline. However, because he was promoted slowly, he is a late bloomer, and his appearance is also a bit older, looking like an ordinary person in his 50s. Crow's feet, forehead wrinkles, slightly loose, dry and wrinkled skin. He doesn't seem to be a master. However, when he stood on the training ground, his momentum suddenly changed. From an old man on the street, he became a fierce old man. He took off his training clothes, revealing his strong and muscular upper body. The skin also became as smooth as marble, crystal clear, and rich in delicate texture. This is the coordination state I created, a characteristic burst skill. It should be similar to the burst skill you created. Everyone follows the principle of entropy, and my coordination characteristic can reverse entropy and turn disorder into order again. A person's aging, or the decline in durability caused by daily activities, is a kind of entropy. In normal times, I will collect and recycle the coordination law in my body. When it comes to actual combat, I will release it. As he spoke, the old look on Tan Yaozu's face disappeared, replaced by a young and handsome face. At the same time, his body's ki and blood were obviously more surging. In order to show my respect for your half-step to the strongest physical body, I will go all out. Are you ready, Li Yi? Looking at Tan Yaozu's surging breath that was close to the strongest, Li Yi nodded secretly in his heart. As expected of one of the 3 strongest in the heavenly rank, he was able to suppress so many talented and versatile strong men in the heavenly rank and rank at the top. He even played a significant role in many battles between the strongest. This method is indeed worthy of his reputation. Brother Tan, since you are so generous, I will certainly not hold back. I will show Brother Tan what magic can be achieved by combining 80 nanometers of microscopic fighting skills with my current physical strength. Li Yu did not think of using divinity or any other characteristics. His current physical strength has already crushed most of the physical bodies of the 9th stage of the heavenly rank. If he still needs divinity, then his microscopic fighting skills would be in vain. On the training ground, the bodies of the two people collided quickly while they were talking. Two barely visible white lines shot out and hit each other. The terrifying power that was enough to shake the B-class mecha exploded. Boom. At the first encounter, the divine shield on the outer periphery of the fists of Tanyaozu and Liu was directly shattered. Not only that, at the moment of shattering, the fist touched the heart of Tanyaozu's fist, and Tanyaozu felt an extremely violent crushing force rushing towards him. Pa! Tanyaozu's fist actually shattered several fingers. It was also at the last moment that Liu stopped the force in time, pressed his body, and forcibly offset the force, so that he did not continue to crush Tanyaozu's palm and wrist. Tanyaozu's body retreated violently and fell to one side. His 3 fingers had been crushed to pieces, and the granulation tissue at the wound grew rapidly under the stimulation of the cooperative rate characteristics, sealing the bloody wound. On the side, Lu Yansheng's pupils shrank sharply. One punch crushed? Without any fancy tricks, just with the flesh, he directly broke the entangled divinity on Tanyaozu's fist and crushed his fingers? Half a step to the strongest flesh, superimposed on the 80-nanometer subtle fighting skills. Is it so terrifying? If Liu hadn't stopped the force just now, wouldn't even Tanyaozu's elbow be crushed? Sorry, I didn't stop the force, Liu apologized. He himself didn't expect that the superposition of the two at full power would have such a terrifying killing power. You know, Tanyaozu is not an ordinary Xianwei, but a top Xianwei. At this moment, he also fully activated his explosive secret skills and used the blessing method of divine entanglement. Except for the useless heavenly tricks, he is basically at 90% of his combat power. In another scenario, if Liu was on the strongest battlefield, wouldn't he be able to break one defense with one sword? It's okay, my body is strong. Spend some time and replenish some nutrition, and it will grow back by itself. Tanyaozu's face was full of surprise. Your crushing power is really amazing. Did you directly crush the structure of my palm from the nano level? Almost. The first layer of power first crushes the microscopic structure of the divine shield, and the second layer of power crushes the body. In essence, it is just a subtle use of the shock skill, as he said. Liu regretted, what a pity, I still have many uses that I haven't used. Tanyaozu's eyelids jumped, and he frowned slightly. How many more are there? Chapter 354, Divine Communication. No point in talking, let's practice, Lu Yansheng said excitedly. Old Tan, your hand was broken in one encounter, which shows how lazy you are. You can't even see the key changes in the key. If it were me, I would definitely see the great lethality of that punch. You two continue to practice, I'm waiting to see your good show. Tanyaozu didn't blame Lu Yansheng for adding fuel to the fire this time, because it was a fact that his hand was broken by Liu's punch. Moreover, although he did pay a lot of attention, he did underestimate the power of Liu's first punch. Come on, Liu, let me see more of your physical body's divine means. As he spoke, he accelerated the activation of the slope feature. The granulation and bone spurs on the granulation seal of his finger section slowly extended out. With his strength of the 9th level of the heavenly rank, this minor injury would have healed itself after a week of nursing. Now, with the stimulation of the coordination feature, it is naturally recovering rapidly. After a while, the new finger appeared in his palm. It can be seen that except for a slight color difference at the cross-section, the other parts are exactly the same as the original. Liu saw Tanyaozu's move and praised, Brother Tan's coordination characteristic is really versatile. Tanyaozu shrugged and said, the characteristic is this characteristic, and it also has a conceptual characteristic, but to use it well, you also need to think about some skills and techniques. Of course, I can't compare with you. As they spoke, the two of them charged forward again. This time, Tanyaozu simply launched his ultimate move of the heavenly position, coordination of 8 sound waves. As his body leaped, his feet seemed to break through a layer after layer of sound waves. Each layer of sound wave seemed to have a huge shock wave extending outward. Suddenly, he punched out, and multiple characteristic forces burst out in his palm. In an instant, a characteristic combination skill based on the coordination characteristic was quickly formed, gathering the 8 sound waves just now, and becoming more and more condensed. The sound was extremely heavy as it overlapped and rushed towards Li Yi. This move has a super strong coordination control power. Once it touches the opponent, it will quickly change the internal coordination of the opponent's body, causing it to lose balance and quickly lose. If facing someone who is much weaker than him, One move can directly make the opponent burn and explode on the spot, which is very powerful. Generally speaking, if you want to be exempt from this move, you can only restrain the conceptual characteristics, or have rich divinity, directly forming a strong defense wall to dissolve the characteristic attack. Li Yu still has no idea of using divinity this time. In this battle, he will use pure physical strength throughout the whole process to challenge the limits of the physical body. He crossed his arms in front of his chest, and the muscles in his arms trembled rapidly, and the power of 80 nanometers of precision quickly erupted. These forces seemed to flow freely between his arms, gathering like water, and then resonating and surging to the palm of his hand. He thrust his palms forward, gathering the explosive spiral power of his whole body's strength, and spiraled forward with 80 nanometers of precision. Exploding out of thin air with a coordination characteristic power transmitted from the front through air vibration. Boom! The moment they touched, the conceptual level coherent characteristics quickly formed a delicate, absolutely smooth, and absolutely tough air film to resist Li Yu's explosive spiral force. A strong shock wave that was strong enough to destroy a 100-meter metra was released from the center point where the two touched, spreading into a giant spherical vacuum, constantly squeezing outward. Boom! On the entire training ground, the extremely hard ground suddenly formed spiral ripples along the direction of the shock wave, cracking into pieces of alloy iron-like debris, rising upward, driven by the high-speed airflow, and constantly floating and sinking. These two top-level strongmen suddenly burst out with such amazing normal destructive power. Lu Yancheng had already discovered that something was wrong, and dodged backwards. The divine shield outside his body emerged to offset the shock wave. In front of him, he had long been blocked by a large amount of dust and iron mist. Feeling this magnificent destructive power, Lu Yancheng was secretly shocked in his heart. Good boy, was Li Yu's attack just now really a destructive force that can be achieved with his physical body alone? Why does it feel more powerful than Lao He's heavenly rank ultimate skill, if he uses his divinity, various characteristic amplifications, spatial characteristics, and his heavenly rank ultimate skill that he has kept in his bottom box? Can he break a top-level B-class mecha in his pure physical state? Hiss, is this the charm of 80 nanometers? Lu Yancheng knew that if his physical body was in the same half-step supreme state as Li Yi, his pure physical body would not be able to achieve such amazing destructive power. Even for him, he must use all his means and cooperate with a heavenly rank ultimate skill to break the armor of the B-class mecha in the half-step supreme state. Moreover, for those top B-class mechas of 120 to 30 meters, he can only be sure to break the defense after he is promoted to the supreme. At this time, the smoke and dust on the field dissipated, revealing the figures of two people. Both of them were unharmed. Obviously, although the momentum of the previous wave was great, because of the equal strength, they actually offset each other's powerful shock waves that killed their respective positions. My goodness, I now believe that if I can strengthen my body through subtle iterations, I can really reach spiritual levels. Tanyaozu's rejuvenated face was grinning with rich expressions. The addition of the two is not true addition, but exponential addition. The more subtle, the stronger the physical body, and the higher the combat power obtained by the superposition of the two. This is indeed worthy of the saying of subtle and divine. This must also be a new way of fighting across the ages. What heavenly tricks, characteristic combination skills, so many fancy things, are not as good as your subtle and divine means to crush everything. Starting today, I will practice fighting skills hard and strive to reach the subtle realm as soon as possible. Li Yu smiled and said, Brother Ten is throwing the baby out with the bathwater. In my opinion, characteristic combination skills, subtle and divine, all of these must be combined to achieve the strongest. What's more, the difficulty of achieving subtlety is much more difficult than heavenly tricks. Tanyaozu's mouth twitched slightly. That's true. In the history of our human federation, only you have reached this realm. It is enough to explain the problem. Lu Yancheng said, Hey, you guys are flattering each other. Are you done yet? Are you still going to fight? Li Yu has only revealed two of his methods, and you, old Tan, can't do it anymore? Show some strength, show some of your best tricks. Tanyaozu took a deep breath and thought to himself, not bad. Li Yu's methods are indeed amazing, but I can't lose face. If I can't even do one move to him, how can I have the face to be trained by him and then promoted to the strongest? Thinking of this, his eyes suddenly condensed, and his aura changed again. Immediately afterwards, his body that had returned to the appearance of a young man suddenly changed again. With a fine-tuning of the coordination ray characteristics, the face of this young man who was originally in his 30s quickly returned to his youthful state and became a handsome man in his 20s. The surging vitality overflowed from him. This is my second stage burst, and it is also my guaranteed burst skill. Li Yi, come again, let me see where the limit of your physical body is. Chapter 355 Reconstruction. Tanyaozu's second stage of coordination burst out, and a powerful aura comparable to that of the strongest suddenly burst out. In the surrounding environment, the airflow was torn by high intensity, generating static electricity, arcs flickering, and crackling. His long hair soared into the sky under the action of the airflow. The extreme rejuvenation of his body and the surging vitality made his hair grow longer and thicker, and it was faintly red. Lu Yansheng was surprised and said, "Good guy, you actually have such a second stage burst." His surprise was not fake. Anyone with a discerning eye could see that the strength of Tanyaozu's aura after the second stage burst at this moment had surpassed Lu Yansheng's peak strength when he was at the 9th stage. It was more than one level better. Although the difference in their combat power was not only due to the comprehensive divinity and physical strength, but also the factor of the heavenly position's ultimate move. It cannot be generalized. But no matter what, Tanyaozu's strength at this moment has indeed surpassed the top heavenly 9th stage. Just based on this move that has never been shown in front of everyone, perhaps the position of the top 3 heavenly positions will change. Lu Yansheng's surprise has another meaning. Although he is nearly 100 years younger than Tanyaozu, he has the strength of the first place in the heavenly rank, so he basically looks at people like Tanyaozu who are slightly weaker in combat power, or even looks down on them. Although his external decency makes him appropriately polite, he is extremely proud in his bones. He also believes that except Zhang Shengfang who can beat him at the same level, other heavenly rank strongmen are not his opponents. Of course, Li Yi is added to the back. Therefore, the surprise and complexity in Lu Yansheng's eyes are by no means simple exclamation. He thought to himself, Old Tan is a strong man of the same generation as General Lin. He can stand in this position. Even if his talent is not as good as mine, the gap should not be that big. It seems that he has been hiding his strength before. If he really bursts out with all his strength, if I am still in the state before the promotion, can I win him? I am afraid not. Tanyaozu glanced at Lu Yansheng's expression and smiled slightly. Old Lu, don't be surprised. As an old guy who can survive the war-torn era, how could I not keep more tricks? You young people are determined to make progress and soar to the sky, but I can't do that. I can only accumulate little by little and accumulate trump cards bit by bit, so don't think my tricks are very powerful. In fact, they are just 3-minute Viagra. They won't last long. As he spoke, Tanyaozu lightly jumped on the spot and suddenly sprinted towards Li Yi. Whoosh! The surging airwaves were caused by the violent movement caused by his high-speed flight, which drove the formation of iron filings and the condensation of iron blocks. In the flow of light and shadow, many phantoms seemed to be reflected outside his body. The high speed at this moment seemed to be extremely noisy. But the inner circle where his body was located was quiet, and was directly smoothed by the coordination characteristics, making his speed even more amazing. Suddenly, his body suddenly disappeared. This is one of his Xianwei tricks, all things invisible. It can smooth and reconstruct the surrounding coordination movements to produce extremely wonderful high-speed hidden activities, which are extremely difficult to identify. At this moment, the superposition of his self-created second-stage explosive skills is enough to produce amazing concealed mobility. Swish! All the movements in the surrounding environment stopped instantly, as if they were smoothed by an invisible big hand. And his body suddenly appeared behind Li Yi, and smashed down with an incredible speed. Bang! Li Yi didn't react immediately, and was hit in the back, and his body suddenly flew forward. However, Li Yi was Li Yi after all. Even though he was caught off guard by Tanyaozu's sudden outburst, his muscle memory, which had been tempered for thousands of times, still played an amazing role. He saw the muscles in his back move slightly, and the 80-nanometer precision of the subtle force directly vibrated up, quickly dissolving the penetrating force of the Guan character. In the process of rushing forward, his body turned upside down, rolled 5 times lightly, completely unloaded the force, and fell to the ground. Seeing that Li Yi so easily dissolves the powerful attack of his 2 superimposed Xianwei tricks, Tanyaozu couldn't help but show a trace of shock in his eyes. Is the subtle level fighting skill so terrifying under Li Yi's physical strength? Come again, whoosh! Tanyaozu flashed up again. It was his Xianwei trick, the invisible one. In the blink of an eye, his body quickly flew around Li Yi, turning around and throwing dozens of punches at lightning speed. Li Yi was not at all confused and just defended on the spot. At this moment, Tanyaozu's second stage burst, combined with the superposition of the heavenly trick. His movement speed has long exceeded the speed limit of Li Yi's current pure physical body. As long as Li Yi still does not use his divinity, characteristics, and various burst skills, he will never be able to get rid of Tanyaozu's amazing speed. But at this moment, Li Yi has no intention of using other means. He just uses the 80 nanometer level subtle power achieved with the help of the nano-sensor, and then uses the high predictive power to predict Tanyaozu's moves while fully activating the subtle power to increase the speed of all parts of the body. Faster, faster. He can clearly feel that this 80 nanometer level subtle power can develop stronger power and speed. In a blink of an eye, the two exchanged hundreds of moves. Suddenly, boom. With a loud noise, Li Yi's body retreated again and flew backwards. Bang! He landed on the wall at high speed, turned his body, and stepped on the wall with his feet, leaving a pair of footprints more than 30 centimeters deep on the wall of this special alloy. The next second, Tanyaozu had already flown over, smashing over like a large artillery shell. Bang! Li Yi's figure flashed out and dodged. Amid the loud noise, the wall made of special alloy broke directly. Even special alloys have strength levels, and the strength level of this training ground is the top of level B. After several impacts from the aftermath of the battle between the two, and several more direct attacks, it finally collapsed. This powerful movement obviously alarmed the local cruise robot of the Moon Fortress. It flew over directly, and just as it was about to ask what was going on, Lu Yansheng gave a direct order, and the cruise robot left immediately. On the training ground, the hot state of the battle between the two undoubtedly made Lu Yansheng feel itchy in his heart, and he wanted to try his hand. But when he thought that he was already the strongest, and the transformation was even greater, it seemed meaningless to really fight. After all, the high-level heavenly stage of human beings can rival many supremas in terms of combat power, but that is only from the perspective of destructive power. Except for the top 10 heavenly stages, whose comprehensive combat power can be comparable, ordinary high-level heavenly stages can only threaten some supremas at most. Moreover, ordinary high-level heavenly stages can also amplify the defense-breaking power of heavenly stage combination skills because they can control suitable divine mechas. This is the reason why the high-level heavenly stages have a high status. For supremas like Lu Yansheng who have advanced from the basic level, their strength is naturally not the same as that of ordinary heavenly stages who have been promoted to the supreme. During the battle, Li Yi was also gradually adapting to the powerful combat capability brought by the 80 nanometer microscopic perspective. Gradually, Tanyaozu's overwhelming speed could no longer do anything to Li Yi. Suddenly, bang! In the high-speed collision, Li Yi's body shook, and he punched Tanyaozu's shoulder with a punch, directly breaking the divine shield outside his body and hitting his shoulder. The moment he was hit, Tanyaozu's face changed, and he flew backwards and fell to the ground. Immediately afterwards, his young and handsome face suddenly changed back to his original middle-aged and elderly appearance. Crow's feet, forehead wrinkles, nasolabial folds, and thin cheeks. The thick hair also disappeared in an instant. He reached out and couldn't help touching his face. He was shocked. "You broke my second stage burst." Li Yi nodded slightly. "I tried it by chance, but I didn't expect it to succeed." "How did you do it?" Tanyaozu's second stage burst skill was broken in an instant, and his body became shrunken and shriveled like a balloon that was punctured. Even his spirit, the surging vitality and combat power, unexpectedly declined instantly. Such an amazing change occurred in the blink of an eye, which was really amazing. Lu Yansheng observed this and couldn't help but frown and said, "Old Tan, does your burst skill have any side effects? Why is the decline so serious?" Tanyaozu smiled slightly. "Fortunately, there is extreme prosperity and extreme decline. This is the natural cycle of all things. I often use the coordination characteristics to change myself. This change is insignificant and can be solved by consuming some time." Lu Yansheng frowned. "Won't this overdraw your vitality?" Tanyaozu shook his head and said, "It can't be said to be overdrawn, but after the burst, there will indeed be a period of fatigue, and it will be fine after a rest. In fact, this is also an important reason why I hid this move. If I hadn't seen Li Yi so fierce today, I wouldn't have thought of giving it a try. He looked at Li Yi. I'm more curious, how did you break my burst skill? Brother Tan has your own 2-stage burst skill, and I also have my own multi-version burst skill. I have some experience in how to activate the potential of the physical body and burst out combat power in a short period of time, Li Yi explained. For example, your first burst relies on the characteristics of coordination rate to give the muscles and bones of the whole body a more lively vitality-like coordination rate, and clear out the aging and dead cells in the body, right? And your second burst actually uses the accumulated coordination rate, that is, reverse entropy, to restore your whole body to a better state, right? Your explanation at that time was actually just a habitual way of fooling people into thinking that you really only had one burst, but this is only part of the deception, making it difficult for people to grasp the true secret of Brother Tan's burst skills. To crack this move, you only need to use subtle penetrating force to penetrate Brother Tan's whole body, and his internal coordination will naturally be broken. By the way, Brother Tan probably overconsumed and overdrawn his body in his early years in order to cope with certain major battles, leaving hidden injuries, so he had to hide his strength and continue to accumulate reverse entropy, right? Even Brother Tan didn't fully activate his accumulated reverse entropy just now. In fact, you still have a 3-stage burst, right? A series of rhetorical questions made Tan Yaozu speechless. Lu Yancheng was even more shocked. Old Tan, is what Li Yi said true? What you said about not overdrawing, is actually overdrawing. At this point, what else can Tan Yaozu say? He can only nod slowly. Lu Yancheng touched his chin and said, no wonder when General Manager Lin asked you if you had the confidence to attack Fanghai, you said you had no confidence. Even with Li Yi helping you to train your body, you didn't have the confidence to become the strongest, Tan Yaozu said. If it was the previous Li Yi, I think a 5% success rate would be good. But if it is the current Li Yi, I believe there is at least a 20% chance, Lu Yancheng asked. Then, have you touched the bottleneck of becoming the strongest before? Tan Yaozu shook his head and said, in fact, I figured out a way to become the strongest more than 20 years ago, but due to the excessive overdraft of my physical body, I had to spend time accumulating coordination factors. I won't hide it from you, when I was practicing with Li Yi just now, I actually used less than 3% of the coordination factors, that is, reverse entropy. The rest, I will release all when I impact the strongest, so that my body will be in peak condition for a longer period of time. On this basis, if Li Yi trains my body again, there should be some hope. Hiss. Lu Yancheng was shocked and said, 3% is so outrageous? Then if you release all of it, won't you be able to beat me? Tan Yaozu shook his head and said, you can't calculate it that way, because the physical body has its limits. No matter how powerful the burst skills are, they can't significantly improve my physical foundation. If I add more anti-entropy coordination rates, it can only increase a small part at most. You can compare this amount to time. The duration of my just now was 3 minutes, which is 3%. If it is 100%, the effect will last for 100 minutes. Moreover, Academic Dean Duanmu, General Manager Lin and others actually know my problem. The reason why they asked Li Yi to help me train my body this time is probably because they want me to make a desperate effort. Lu Yancheng frowned. A desperate effort? What do you mean? What it means is that Brother Tan may not have many days left. If he doesn't take this opportunity to become the strongest, I'm afraid his physical body will be completely overdrawn within 2 or 3 years, Li Yi said in a deep voice. Lu Yancheng frowned even more and looked at Li Yi, with 80-nanometer level microscopic perception. Can you even judge this? He didn't want to believe it from the bottom of his heart. Li Yi nodded slightly. When I punched Brother Tan's whole body with my last punch and broke his internal coordination, I found through microscopic perception that Brother Tan's cell vitality was very weak. The method of restoring youth just now is actually a fierce fire. After the fierceness, the decline will be more fierce. I am afraid that the explosive skills that Brother Tan studied in his early years may be more ruthless and used more frequently in pursuit of results. This is another reason why Brother Tan's physical lifespan was overdrawn. Tan Yaozu nodded slowly. Yes, the war was chaotic back then, and the aliens were strong. If I didn't overdraw myself, I would have died in various wars long ago. Lu Yancheng took a deep breath and said, Li Yi, how confident are you about old Tan's body forging and promotion now? Chapter 356 Absorption. Give it your best try. So far, I have only seen a version of you who has been promoted, Li Yu shook his head. Normally speaking, even if I fail once, I should be able to try again when my strength improves, but the problem now for Brother Tan is that he has to go all out. If you put your hope on the next time, then perhaps the 2 opportunities in the near future will be wasted. If it's too late, Brother Tan's physical condition will worsen, and it may be more difficult for him to be promoted. We must seize this opportunity to use all the anti-entropy. Besides, the battle plan will have to start by then, and we won't be able to make it in time for Brother Fang's drifting box, if one link is delayed. The subsequent impact will be even more unimaginable. After some analysis, Lu Yancheng and Tan Yaozu both felt a slight sinking in their hearts. Li Yu said, Brother Tan just helped me practice, which was very helpful for me to improve my control of subtle power. Next, I believe that Brother Tan will definitely be blessed. Now, let me rest and recover for a while, and adjust my body to the best condition. After that, how about we do some physical training? Tan Yaozu nodded slightly. That's what I need. Lu Yancheng naturally had no objection. His main role in accompanying them this time was to serve as a witness and to protect and guard the 2 of them. Although this is the Moon Fortress, it belongs to the core area of mankind. But no matter what, the precautions that should be done must not be missed. Li Yu sat cross-legged, counted and pondered the various skills of the 80-nanometer level in his mind, and then slowly fell asleep. In the dream plane, his slender figure slowly emerged and fell to the ground. At his feet, a lot of new memory fragments have been refreshed. The core goal of his coming in this time is naturally to absorb the relevant control experience of the 80-nanometer level and the memory fragments of the physical training method. During these days, including his creation of new bodybuilding methods and maintaining the absorption of ancient memories, he insisted on entering the dream plane. The several versions of the bodybuilding methods he created were able to be perfected so quickly, and they also used a lot of experimental materials produced in the parallel world to compare with each other. Today, he got the nanosensor for the first time, which allowed his microscopic perception skills to be expanded. After all, many of his skills and techniques require these microscopic perceptions to assist in completion. The 2 work together and can launch a lot of moves. In fact, in the battle with Tan Yaozu, he still has a lot of micro-level moves to use. For example, he now has a certain degree of confidence that he can directly disintegrate the target organism's genes with one punch, causing its genes to collapse directly. Genes, after all, are just nano-level information. He has now reached 80 nanometers of micro-precision, and can already use a large amount of force to directly crush the larger genes on the outer layer of the biological genes. If his microcontrol ability can reach a higher level, such as 1 nanometer precision, then let alone disintegrate the opponent's genes, maybe he can directly beat the opponent to revert to his ancestry. Some of the more varied ones can also turn people into other mammals, such as dogs and mice. These technologies can be realized by gene editing in this era. But it is very difficult. Li Yu has also seen a lot of this information in the human database. He believes that if he learns this knowledge, and then improves the microscopic perception and microscopic scale, and uses it in his own hands, he may be able to beat people into a deformed state with one punch. At this level, it is probably not an exaggeration to say that it is a supernatural power. Using the flesh to create an effect comparable to the characteristics of concepts has begun to surpass the barriers of divine civilization. However, Li Yu knows that he should still have a long way to go to achieve this step. While thinking, he began to absorb various bodybuilding methods and memory fragments of skills related to 80-nanometer microscopic. With his current soul strength, it is also easy and efficient to absorb more than a dozen in one breath. This is good, a bit surprising. This is also good, it is a use I have never thought of. In this way, more than half an hour passed in a blink of an eye. When Li Yu woke up, Tan Yaozu also completed his cultivation. His eyes were full of light, and it was obvious that he had gained a lot from this dream. In particular, the first time he entered the 80-nanometer precision brought a lot of new memories that he had never had before. In the past, his microscopic perception had not yet broken through, and his realm was not high enough. The memory of microscopic manipulation was at most at the micron level. This time, a lot of refreshes gave him a new understanding of the new version of the Sea King body forging method. Let's get started. In order to achieve the maximum effect, Li Yu directly launched the 3.2 burst skill. Boom. At this moment, his body, which had already reached the strongest version, expanded slightly. The surging breath was released without concealment. This huge body breath, with the activation of his many characteristics, was like a wind tunnel machine blowing in one breath, which was very amazing. The strong airflow was rumbling. In the surrounding environment, countless cyclones blew up like a typhoon, constantly spinning and rising. Lu Yansheng and Tan Yaozu felt Li Yi's full strength burst and the posture of starting with a big move, and they were shocked. Is this the terrifying strength that a half-step supreme body can achieve after adding Li Yi's many self-created explosive skills? Lu Yansheng's pupils trembled violently. He could clearly feel that Li Yi at this moment even exerted a little pressure on him in terms of breath. Even though he was not in a wartime state at this moment, he did not mobilize himself and did not have explosive power, but he was still a real supreme. He was also a master who could fight with the senior supreme Zhao He. Although he couldn't believe it, the reality was in front of him, but Lu Yansheng had no choice but to accept this fact. That is, when Li Yi's body reached half a step to the supreme, his upper limit of combat power had been widened, and he had completely established a foothold in the supreme level. Tan Yaozu took a deep breath to hide the shock in his eyes. Then, he released the anti-entropy coordination rate that he had accumulated for a long time. 3 stages, 100% explosion. Boom. From Tan Yaozu, an extremely fierce breath also burst out rapidly. His skin, which had already shown obvious signs of aging and dryness, quickly became moist and shiny. With his full strength bursting out, Tan Yaozu also displayed an aura that was far superior to his previous one. Even when colliding with Li Yi's surging aura at the moment, he was not much inferior, and was even rising slightly, surpassing Li Yi by half a step. It can be seen how terrifying the anti-entropy coordination rate he has accumulated for so many years is. Lu Yansheng twitched his mouth, and thought to himself, Old Tan is really dishonest. He just told me that the 3rd stage burst is not much stronger than his 2nd stage burst. Now it seems that this thing that has consumed so much vitality to accumulate should not be underestimated. I hope this old guy can succeed in one fell swoop. If it works, Li Yi will have successfully created 2 powerful people. Chapter 357-20. Chapter 357 2.0. As the states of the 2 people reached their peaks simultaneously, Li Yi also threw out his fists quickly and began to forge Tan Yaozu quickly. Pa pa pa. A series of dense explosions. This time, Li Yi did not rush to arrange the Sea King transformation method. Instead, he started with a Xiangang Yidi forging micro method. There was no other reason. He would gradually accumulate enough physical strength for Tan Yaozu and help him break through as soon as possible. Because Tan Yaozu burst out with all his strength and activated his state to the maximum, Li Yi could also burst out with all his strength this time and never hold back. In the blink of an eye, he had performed 10 rounds of the Xiangang Yidi forging micro method. After 10 rounds, Tan Yaozu's body also showed visible physical enhancement. His cells were reconstructing. His breath was constantly strengthening. With a casual exhalation, there was a thick airflow. Li Yi's nanosensor was also fully opened, reaching the 80 nanometer level of subtle perception, constantly sensing the physical transformation in Tan Yaozu's body. With the help of the brain superlifting technique, he quickly optimized the details of the Sea King's transfiguration method through transformation. Then, he began to change to a new forging method. He changed his fists to fingers, and his body flowed like a ghost beside Tan Yaozu. Swish, swish, swish. In the blink of an eye, he stabbed dozens of times like lightning. Tan Yaozu's physical strength also continued to increase. The powerful physical potential brought by being a 9th-level heavenly rank was constantly stimulated and reconstructed. In a blink of an eye, 20 minutes of Li Yi's high-speed forging had passed. Tan Yaozu's physical aura was constantly increasing, but the increase was obviously not as good as before, and there was a clear slowdown in growth. Lu Yansheng observed from the side and frowned quickly. Oh no, Old Tan's physical body is overdrawn too much, so even if the physical body is strengthened, will the gain it can bring to the soul also decrease? He quickly saw the core problem of Tan Yaozu. Forging the body to benefit the soul, it is obvious that physical strength alone is not enough. It was some mysterious substance that humans had not yet discovered. It had a positive effect on the soul, allowing the soul to break through further and reach the realm of the strongest. But at this moment, in addition to overdrawing his life potential, Tan Yaozu probably also overdrawn this mysterious substance. Li Yi also immediately felt the obvious difference between Tan Yaozu and Lu Yansheng. If Lu Yansheng's body was a closed furnace that would not go out, Then Tanyaozu was a furnace with air leaks everywhere and dim flames. Although Tanyaozu's body was rapidly improving under his forging. However, this improvement was like water without a source and a tree without roots. Once Tanyaozu used up the accumulated coordination rate, his temporary growth would soon have a large decline. At that time, Tanyaozu probably could only wait for death. However, Li Yi himself had also reached his limit, and all the buffs that could be added were basically added. Now he could only keep the body forging method unchanged and wait for Tanyaozu to find that opportunity for a breakthrough. In a blink of an eye, time came to the 30th minute. Tanyaozu's aura has almost reached a peak, and the changes in his body seem to have stopped. It can be seen with the naked eye that Tanyaozu is like a bloated balloon at this moment, and it seems that he will explode at any time, but there is no change. Li Yi's high-intensity control of power forging and maintaining the 3.2 burst skill also consumes a lot. This anxious moment affects the hearts of the three people at the same time. Li Yansheng couldn't bear it anymore and shouted, "Li Yi, use all your tricks." At this time, Lao Tan's hardware is too bad. Even if it is an unperfected method, you should try it. Try it as a last resort. At this time, he had no room to make a move and could only watch. The anxiety in his heart was the greatest. Li Yu also knew that if he didn't make some changes now, Tanyaozu's hope of transformation would be gone. Immediately, he took a deep breath and greatly stimulated the nano-sensor with his divinity. Then, the microscopic observation scale was forcibly pulled up from 80 nanometers to 50 nanometers. It was not easy for him to adapt to this level, but he could do it with gritted teeth. The greater difficulty is that his current subtle power is limited by the strength of his soul, and the 80 nanometer level is already the limit. But now, even if it is difficult, he has to try. If he can really achieve the microscopic precision of this scale, then his bodybuilding effect may penetrate deep into Tanyaozu's cells and reactivate his vitality. As for the divine characteristics of life such as growth, it is also possible that this subtle power will drive it into the depths of Tanyaozu's cells. Without this subtle power, it would be more difficult to directly activate the characteristics in a complex body and achieve precise effects. Although the characteristics are strong, they need to rely on something to be transmitted to the surroundings in order to produce effects. Unfortunately, the immortal divine genes from the God Man are all passive characteristics and do not have the function of active enhancement. If you can actively enhance the vitality of others, Tanyaozu's problems will most likely be solved. At this moment, after Li Yu raised the microscopic scale of the nanosensor to 50 nanometers, his brain seemed to be hit by a heavy hammer, and his head was buzzing. These more intensive and complex information flows into the brain, which brings a lot of pressure. He tried to apply the deformation characteristics to the brain. In the past, his use was at most at the micrometer scale. Now, since the microscopic perception scale has been improved, he began to deform some deformable brain areas in a small range according to his own understanding, and gave them superelastic characteristics. He operated very carefully, only operating on the brain areas that he had tested before or was familiar with. After all, this is the brain, and it would be very harmful if it was done wrong. With such a split focus, his forging movements for Tanyaozu were much slower. Li Yansheng could see that Li Yi was trying new tricks. Although he was anxious, he could only watch silently and be ready to take action at any time when the situation was extremely bad. Although he knew that he had little room to take action, after all, everyone had their own expertise, he could at least keep an eye on it to prevent some unexpected accidents. In a blink of an eye, the time came to the 50th minute. There were only 47 minutes left for Tanyaozu. At this moment, Tanyaozu's breath had fallen back to a certain level and stabilized. It can be seen that Tanyaozu himself was also making some attempts to achieve this breakthrough. At this time, Li Yu had adjusted the microscale back to 60 nanometers, which was deeper than 80 nanometers, but not as high as 50 nanometers. The blessing he gave to the brain at the nanoscale finally allowed him to successfully withstand the microscopic perception of this scale and complete the initial adaptation. Li Yu's eyes suddenly shot out a ray of light, and he felt that his brain was in a state of rapid operation and boiling. His brain superlifting technique was also initially iterated to version 2.0. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelis. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 358 Skilled. The upgraded version of the brain superlifting technique soon gave his soul a stronger load capacity and fine calculation ability. At this moment, the last missing link of the 50-nanometer level subtle force was successfully made up. Bang! The new subtle vibration force was encouraged by him and hit Tang Yaozu. When he poked for the first time, the operation was still a little awkward and the speed was slightly slow. When he poked for the second time, he had lost the awkwardness of his fingertips and became more skilled. When he poked for the third time, it was already quite smooth. When he poked for the fourth time, his figure was more than a ghost. When he moved, he was like a phantom, almost invisible to the naked eye. Whoosh! 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 Violent screams were constantly torn out with his rapid movements. This overclocked sound wave shook the debris everywhere around. Various plexiglass windows also had spider web cracks and shattered inch by inch. Snap! 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 The memory fragments absorbed during the previous interval, some of which had not been completely absorbed, were also being digested quickly. In the blink of an eye, 3 minutes of continuous attacks passed. Under Li Yi's deeper and more penetrating forging, Tang Yaozu's dormant breath surged again. Tang Yaozu clearly felt that Li Yi could actually inject the power of those longevity characteristics into the depths of his cells. Those decaying cells in the flesh that were about to collapse like a landslide were constantly nourished by layers of extremely subtle growth characteristics. At the same time, the microelectric characteristics that he had refined and controlled were also constantly stimulated and penetrated. Zizzy, zizzy. Originally, the flesh that had reached the 9th level of the heavenly rank had extremely strong stability inside. Even if the divinity was not stimulated, the deep structure would not be directly changed by external characteristics. What could be changed was at most the external forms visible to the naked eye. Even through fierce physical attacks, such as thousands of degrees of high temperature, high-speed kinetic energy attacks, divine energy wave impacts, etc., at most it can only destroy, and cannot achieve such a change. But at this moment, Li Yi can actually use this subtle strength to penetrate the characteristics into such a deep cell. With this operation, the moment Tang Yaozu felt it, he knew that his opportunity had come. Even if Li Yi's characteristic power cannot permanently change his own state. But at this moment, under the effect of his own coordination characteristics, superimposed on Li Yi's deep penetration and activation, he finally found that his soul strength, which had been stagnant for a long time, finally had a qualitative transformation. At this moment, he, who had been brewing for a long time and seized the opportunity to break through more than 20 years ago, finally seized this opportunity again. The 3 yuan cores in the body fused brazenly. Boom! It was like a thunder. The earth-shaking sound came from Tang Yaozu's body. Lu Yansheng's heart moved. Is this the powerful impact sound produced by the fusion of 3 cores? So strong? Even the current environment can have such a big impact? Although he was surprised, Lu Yansheng was undoubtedly more relaxed. Just by hearing this voice, he knew that Li Yi's attempt was successful. Tang Yaozu has already stepped through the most difficult level. From this voice, Li Yi simply stopped his movements, took a few steps back, and carefully felt the transformation from Tang Yaozu's body. As a rare innate concept characteristic owner, the coordination characteristic gave Tang Yaozu stronger combat power, but also made him habitually use the coordination characteristic to overdraw his vitality in exchange for stronger combat power. Therefore, his physique has long been transformed by the coordination characteristic to deviate more from the normal human genes. Li Yi clearly felt that Tang Yaozu's transformation process was very different from Lu Yansheng's. He has seen the physical records of many powerful people on the human side, and roughly knows where the physique of each powerful person is different. But people like Tang Yaozu are rare. In terms of uniqueness, Tang Yaozu's transformation process is indeed unique and completely different from other powerful people. Others, even those like Lin Jianlong, did not differ as much as Tang Yaozu and others. Not only that, there was also a process of restoring vitality in Tang Yaozu's body. This process was also an absolutely rare sample, which brought him great benefits. Li Yi turned on the nanosensor throughout the whole process, quickly recording the physical changes in Tang Yaozu's body. In the blink of an eye, time slowly passed. Finally, at the 63rd minute of the start of the bodybuilding, Tang Yaozu's transformation was finally over. The powerful airflow produced by his transformation in the outside world also slowly converged and became calm. Tanyaozu's height increased slightly by an inch, from a skinny figure of 1.9 meters to 1.94 meters. His body also became thicker, and his muscles showed different luster everywhere. His overall state and breath were actually slightly better than when Liu Yansheng was promoted. Liu Yansheng felt the changes in Tanyaozu and was also envious. It seems that I am at a disadvantage for being the first one to be trained by Li Yi. When Li Yi was training your body, I gained a lot of experience and became much stronger. Now the effect of this wave of training for you, old Tan, is much stronger. It can even save the remaining few years of your life. Tanyaozu slowly opened his eyes, and the divine light in his eyes shot out like a laser. After a while, he slowly dissipated the divine light in his eyes and said with a smile, "Old Liu, this is just a risky gamble that I have spent hundreds of years of vitality on. You don't have to envy me, of course. Li Yi's kindness to me goes without saying. From now on, what Li Yi says is equivalent to what I, Tan, say. In the Federation, I will be his most solid and capable comrade in arms." Liu Yansheng curled his lips and said, "Who can't say nice words? Whether they are really reliable or not depends on what you do in the future." Li Yi smiled and said, "There is no need for you two brothers to be like this. We are all comrades in arms. There will be many battles in the future that require us to rely on each other. Besides, I originally wanted to obtain your sample data at close range and obtain the data of your transformation, which will gain me more. It is enough for me that you can let go of all the details and let me observe without covering up." Liu Yansheng said with a sigh, "You are worthy of being my good brother, Liu Yansheng. After being promoted to general, you have a lot of words to say. By the way, old Tan, after your promotion, will the three cores be integrated into one? Will it be the strongest characteristic or the co-ray characteristic?" Tanyaozu nodded slightly. "Yes, the coordination characteristic is my main combat core characteristic. Although I have integrated the characteristics of the other two cores when I was promoted to the strongest this time, the main body is still the coordination characteristic, and it has been enhanced to a certain extent." "To what extent?" Liu Yansheng asked curiously. "You want to try?" Tanyaozu showed interest. "How about we fight? After you were promoted, I have long wanted to measure how much you have improved." As he was talking, Li Yi noticed a message, and he said with a move in his heart, "You too, I think you can consider changing your next opponent." Hang Su'er actually found the hidden map of this Henshin prison in the ancient ruins in Pluto. Ancient ruins. The two looked a little shocked. "There is actually another layer of ruins inside this Henshin prison. Brother He and Chief Qin have already been there. According to Chief Qin, this relic is most likely another entrance to the Wudao Divine Mountain. Hang Su'er may have used a trick to sneak into our Henshin prison." Li Yi did not expect that there was actually an entrance to the Wudao Divine Mountain inside the moon. He had found it strange before. Although the Wudao Divine Mountain on Earth was also very mysterious, the value it showed did not seem to be worth the hard pursuit of the ancestors of the Star Clan. Perhaps, the answer could be found in the Moon Fortress. Chapter 359 Gathering. After hearing the news reported by Li Yi, the two immediately checked the request for help that had just been sent. Interesting, it's such a coincidence that just after Lao Tan was promoted, Hang Su'er found the entrance to the God-suppressing prison leading to the Divine Mountain of Enlightenment. Liu Yansheng was very surprised. Tanyaozu said, "It has something to do with State Chief Qin. Maybe Hang Su'er originally wanted to enter in a more concealed way, but with the arrival of State Chief Qin, he was in great danger, and Hang Su'er had to expose the entrance he had found in advance." Liu Yansheng nodded. "Indeed, State Chief Qin is extremely powerful. What Lao He can't do, State Chief Qin may not be unable to do. Hang Su'er can play hide-and-seek with Lao He, but he may not be unable to withstand the crushing of State Chief Qin's absolute strength." As they spoke, the three of them also acted quickly, driving their own divine mechas, flying out of the training ground, and heading to the God-suppressing prison. "Speaking of which, Brother Liu, Brother Tan, when are you two going to upgrade your divine mechas? After the upgrade is completed, your combat power will also see a surge, right?" Li Yi asked curiously. The reason he asked this was that he wanted to observe the process of upgrading A-level mechas to S-level to see if he could gain anything else. Liu Yansheng immediately understood what Li Yi meant and said with a smile, "I understand what you mean. You want to go and watch it live, right?" "Of course, I heard that when A-level is upgraded to S-level, the divine mecha will also undergo a huge transformation. This process will involve more complex divine changes. My microscopic perception has greatly improved now, and I am really interested in watching it." Tanyaozu said, I should go to upgrade in the next 2 days. We have an S-level upgrade pool in the Star Division of the Earth. Mr. Fang will leave in the next few days, and I must complete the upgrade as soon as possible, so that I can fully support his drifting box and meteor mecha, and the effect will be the best. Li Yi, if you want to see it, just say hello to me, Lu Yancheng said with a smile. After the matter of Wudao Divine Mountain is dealt with, I will also go to upgrade after recuperating and training for a period of time. My upgrade location is on Neptune. My Neptune mecha is the strongest existing mecha of the celestial god sequence produced by Neptune, so of course it must be upgraded on Neptune. Good brother, you can finish watching old tens first, and then watch mine. It won't affect your schedule at all. Li Yi smiled and said, okay, I'm not in a hurry. The two brothers can make their own arrangements and just let me know. Now that the matter of Wudao Mountain has been dealt with, my plan is to try other areas of the Earth's ruins and generate as many divine genes as possible. In this way, we can also strive to maximize our combat power before the war comes. Lu Yancheng said enviously, in 2 or 3 months, our strength may only improve a little, but for you, it may be a huge increase. Tanyaozu smiled and said, I even suspect that Li Yu will be able to beat you in 3 months. Old Lu Yancheng said with a smile, if he can beat me, he can beat you too. Old Tan, even though you still have a lot of accumulated coentropy and your vitality has improved, you have to take it easy. If you have a few more 3-stage bursts, you will definitely overdraw your vitality. Even if it does, it's not as serious as before. Thanks to Li Yi's subtle method, my vitality and characteristic strength at the moment can basically withstand the cost of the 3-stage explosion, Tanyaozu said with a smile. Old Lu, you were the first in the heavenly position before because I overdrew too much? From now on, you may not be as strong as me. What's the matter? How about we practice again after the matter of Wudao Shenshin is settled? In the Sea King Mecha, Lu Yancheng narrowed his eyes slightly, and his fighting spirit was surging. Li Yu interrupted and said, you too, it's almost enough. This Wudao Shenshin may not be safe. I also faced a life and death crisis after entering last time. After this, the two stopped bickering. Soon, 3 divine mechas quickly drove into the Henshin prison from the special mecha channel. As soon as they entered, He Guangzi's communication came over and directly connected the 3 people. Old Tan, did you succeed in getting promoted? Yes, great. As expected of Li Yi, he can handle even a critical situation like yours. Now we have 4 strongest people here, it's stable, He Guangzi said happily. Wait, Old He? How do you know about Old Tan's situation? Lu Yancheng's eyes widened in shock. Did they say that only General Lin and his men knew? What else? Do you think everyone is as careless as you? Anyone who is a little more careful can see how difficult it is for Old Tan. He Guangzi was speechless. Lu Yancheng, Tanyaozu smiled. Old Lu, this reckless man, was indeed blind. Li Yi, who didn't know him well before, could see it all at once. Old Lu and I have fought side by side for so long, and you couldn't see it? What should we do next? You'll know when you come in. Li Yi entered the Enlightenment Mountain last time, so he should know roughly what the mechanism is like inside. Right, brother, he means the challenge mechanism. Yes, there's a dual mechanism for one person, and a group battle mechanism for multiple people. State Chiefkin said that the group battle is difficult, but the benefits are also the highest, and it is very likely to obtain more secrets and technologies of the divine era. We can just form a 6-person team this time. Li Yi's heart moved, and he asked, from what brother? He said, Hangser has entered the dual mode. The last time Li Yi entered the Enlightenment Mountain, with the help of the internal challenge mechanism, he broke through the realm of force like flowing water in one fell swoop and reached the realm of subtlety. It is precisely with this divine subtlety that his combat power has become more and more profound, and with multiple versions of the burst skill, the effect is even more outstanding, far exceeding before. So much so that he has even developed multiple versions of the body forging method, and with 70 divine genes, he has a half step to the strongest physical strength without even the 3 elements combined. If he burst out with all his strength, he might not be unable to fight even against the conventional strongest. Although there are other opportunities and accumulations in the middle. But it is undeniable that the state of subtlety is indeed the core of his strength, reaching such a peak state. If he is still only in the state of force like flowing water, he is naturally not weak, but at most it is equivalent to the ordinary high stage of the heavenly rank. And he can't even touch the tail of the top 10 of the heavenly rank. He remembered that after completing the trial of the first level, He also obtained the technology of building bionic limbs and neural networks of divine mechas, as well as the mystery clues of the origin of divinity. This bionic limb and neural network technology can help humans build large-scale mechas that belong to humans. However, because this technology is relatively complicated, human experts have not yet completed their study. Therefore, according to Li Yi's later understanding, it will take more or less 1 or 2 years for humans to fully roll out the situation of artificial mechas, or even longer. But no matter what, the middle and lower level combat power of humans has finally had a chance to make a leap forward. As for the mysterious memory of the source of divinity, he only obtained the memory related to Dan Tuyi and Kuchuya, and through this, he recently brushed the memory of the ancient times and obtained some ancient knowledge and skills. To crack its mystery, it has not been successful yet. He was thinking, and heard Guangzi's answer, yes, Hang Suer is somewhere, absorbing enough energy and has recovered most of his body. Next, when we enter the Enlightenment Mountain in a group battle, we are likely to face him directly. Chapter 360 Snow Dragon. As they were talking, everyone quickly entered the depths of the God-suppressing prison. The God-suppressing prison has 36 floors, each of which is very vast and much larger than the closed environment displayed on the outside. Obviously, there must be a powerful force of time and space characteristics, or time and space technology has played a lot of roles in it. 3 divine mechas flew quickly, crossed layers of passages, and arrived at the destination mentioned in the rescue message. From this, they saw the divine mechas of Qin Longquan and the other 2. The most eye-catching one is undoubtedly Qin Longquan's S-Class Peak Snow Dragon Mecha, which is 485 meters high. This Snow Dragon Mecha is as majestic as a mountain, standing on one side, and the surrounding S-Class and A-Class high-level mechas are set off like children. This is the top height of the S-Class Mecha, which is incomparable and terrifying. In the world of divine mechas where height is the performance standard, this Snow Dragon Mecha undoubtedly has a strong oppressive force that is almost as strong as the SS-Class Mecha. Li Yi also looked over it. Qin Longquan had dealt with him several times, but this was the first time he had carefully examined the highest mecha that a human warrior could currently control. According to his observation, even the Xianzhao mecha driven by Lin Jianlong was slightly shorter. This mecha was snow-white in color, and the chest armor was engraved with lotus-shaped petals and alternating silver and gold, which added a bit of elegance to its majestic and powerful appearance. The face was in the shape of a rough dragon head, and the long teeth were like stalactites, hanging vertically. The Snow Dragon Mecha was a classic heavy armor power type. Only a pair of arms did not have that kind of heavy armor. The rest of the body was covered with thick face armor like that worn by ancient generals, and the edges were rolled inward, which added a bit of hard structure. The arms were thick, knotty and powerful, covered with a layer of fine biological scale like soft armor, showing silver-white vertical stripes, and the color was very bright. This Snow Dragon Mecha stood steadily in front of a huge black cave, blocking everyone's vision. It was not until they got closer that they discovered the existence of this black cave. Li Yi was naturally driving the Pluto Mecha this time. After the blessing of the God-suppressing prison, the Pluto Mecha was already the most powerful divine mecha under his command. The second was the Gaia Mecha, and the third was the Celestial King Mecha. When their 3 divine mechas landed, Guangzi's voice also said at the same time, "Since you are all here, let's go in together and try to complete this exploration in the shortest time and get the secret of the Wudao Divine Mountain." Lu Yansheng said, "Oldie, how can you be sure that a cave is the entrance to the Wudao Divine Mountain?" Qin Longquan coughed lightly and said, "Let me explain this, and we will talk while we walk. Old Zhao, you take the lead, and the others will follow one after another, and I will cover you." Everyone controlled the divine mechas as they were told, and they flew into the cave with flames flashing behind them. The cave was about 200 meters in diameter. Except for the slightly narrow entrance of the Snow Dragon Mecha, the other divine mechas still had a lot of room to maneuver when they flew in. Qin Longquan was heard saying on the public channel, regarding the Enlightenment Mountain, "I will simply tell you something you don't know. First of all, the time Li Yi entered the Enlightenment Mountain was indeed the first time the entrance to the earth was opened. At least it was the first time I knew about it. Before Li Yi, Lao Lin, Duanmu and I actually knew that there were entrances to the Enlightenment Mountain in the ruins of the earth and the moon, but we never knew what conditions needed to be met to trigger it. As for how we confirmed it, it was naturally because we discovered other entrances before this. This entrance is located on Mars, about 150 years ago." The three of us triggered that entrance during an exploration of the ruins of Mars and got the opportunity to enter. There, we passed the basic trial through team battles and each gained something. The reason why Lao Lin, Duanmu, and I were able to reach the top of the strongest position so quickly cannot be ruled out as having other talents, actual combat, and hard work. But in fact, if there was no Enlightenment Mountain, the three of us would definitely not have such strength. The combat power that has reached the level of the three of us within 300 years is no longer something that can be obtained through ordinary efforts or opportunities in the ruins. Hearing this, Li Yi's heart moved slightly, and he asked, Captain Qin, from what you said, the entrance to the Martian ruins can no longer be entered after leaving. Qin Longchuan said, yes, that's right. We passed the basic trial, and everyone got a part of the puzzle. After that, we tried many times, but didn't find a chance to enter. We guessed that maybe we can only re-enter through other entrances or by solving the puzzle. Therefore, after that, we collected information many times to understand things related to this Enlightenment Mountain. From this we also know that the main planets in our solar system, and even some satellites, have at least one entrance each. Moreover, each entrance will teleport to a different trial area, and the content of the trial will also be different due to the different entrances. After discovering the entrance to the Enlightenment Mountain in the Martian ruins, we found another one on Saturn. And we each gained something. Hearing this, everyone had their own doubts. Lu Yansheng said, so, I might have found the entrance to the Enlightenment Mountain in the depths of the ruins of Neptune. Qin Longchuan said slowly, yes, that's right. However, some planets in the solar system, such as Mercury, Venus, Uranus, etc., have not yet found ancient ruins. Therefore, it is difficult for us to find the corresponding entrances to these planets out of thin air. Li Yu asked, may I ask, Chief Qin, what did you gain at the entrance to Mars at that time? Qin Longchuan said, the gains of the three of us are different, but they are mainly the methods of refining the sequence of divine will that we each major in. Although we didn't gain the subtle level fighting skills like you, we also learned some of the secrets of force like flowing water, and reached this level in more than 100 years of training. Li Yu understood. It seems that the group battle that Qin Longchuan and his team passed at that time should be a test of force like flowing water. It may not be a test of fighting skills, but the intensity is probably at this level. In this case, they were able to reach such a level 150 years ago, and it is no wonder that their strength is so strong, enough to defend mankind for a while. However, what Li Yi does not understand is why he gained technology, while they gained the method of refining divine will. Is it because the realm when they passed the level was different? Or is it because the entrance to the Earth ruins is more special? After all, the appearance of other entrances did not cause a large-scale invasion of the Star Clan, only his Earth entrance has produced such a big change. Even the Resurrectors who have been lurking for many years have emerged. Of course, the difference in realm is also possible. Qin Longchuan is said to have been promoted to the strongest more than 200 years ago. Duan Mushong and Lin Jianlong should be a generation later, but not too late. 150 years ago, they should have been at least entering the strongest realm. It is even possible that they have condensed multiple strongest divinities. While thinking, the scene in front of them suddenly changed and became clear. An area that Li Yu was extremely familiar with, but a little unfamiliar, appeared in front of them. Not only that, there seemed to be a huge force from an unknown source coming from the divine Mecha, which ejected them from the divine Mecha. Chapter 361 Whirlpool. No one expected this wave of ejection. Even Qin Longchuan, who was driving the Snow Dragon mech, resisted for a while and was still ejected. At the moment of ejection, everyone was swept forward by a force from an unknown source. In the chaos, Li Yu opened his eyes and observed that the space of the Enlightenment Mountain in front was as grand as the scene he had seen before, and was also filled with the characteristic patterns of the ancient times and various huge buildings. However, the style was similar, but it was obviously a different scene. Qin Longchuan shouted, be careful, this time the Enlightenment Mountain may not be a simple group battle or a single duel. Swoosh. The hurricane hit, and the 6 people flew passively in multiple directions. This hurricane contained a very strong suppressive force, and everyone's divine energy was firmly suppressed. The power in the wind was very strong, and everyone could not completely resist it with just their flesh. Li Yu continued to vibrate with his subtle power, offsetting a large part of the wind force, but every time he offset a part, a stronger wind force swept in. Therefore, even Li Yi, or masters like Qin Longchuan and Zhao He, were in a completely passive state, flying in different directions. Swoosh! This wind can suppress divinity. Is it because the entrance is placed at the entrance of the god-suppressing prison? Li Yi sat cross-legged in the wind, holding his chin and thinking. Although he couldn't get rid of the direction of the wind and his divinity was suppressed, he used the power of subtle vibration to vibrate outside his body and shake off some of the wind that rolled in, and he could still maintain balance. He simply ignored the wind that kept blowing, and simply calmed down, activated the nano-sensor, and carefully observed the mystery in the wind. It is said that this is the Enlightenment Mountain. With the experience of Qin Longquan and himself, it is not necessary to fall into a dangerous situation before any trial is notified. Therefore, instead of worrying about safety, it is better to take this opportunity to see if he can figure out what kind of mystery is hidden in the power that suppresses divinity. Unfortunately, after several observations, he could only feel that this was a very special power of conceptual characteristics. There was no physical change, it was just pure power of conceptual characteristics. And this was exactly what the nanosensor could not directly observe. After Li Yi found that he could not figure out the secret, he no longer paid attention to it. On the one hand, he maintained the subtle vibration force outside his body to resist the wind. On the other hand, he simply summarized the other gains he had gained from the transformation process of Tan Yaozu. Referring to these details of the transformation, he began to try to create his third bodybuilding method. Because Tan Yaozu's physique is very special, if this bodybuilding method is successfully created, the gains it can bring will most likely not be less. At least, it can improve some of Li Yi's own unforged areas. This one, he temporarily named it a Zilu shedding method, corresponding to the Neptune shedding method. Where is this wind going to take me? In a blink of an eye, more than 10 minutes had passed. Li Yi opened his eyes and observed, and found that he could no longer see the figures of Qin Longquan and others around him. A few minutes ago, if he looked far away, he could still vaguely see the figures of Qin Longquan and Zhao He. But now, he could not see the two people at all. He could only see that he seemed to be flying in the void, which was neither in the sky nor on the ground, and he was always speeding. There was no reference point around him. Without a reference point, his powerful spatial thinking could not be used. Gradually, he felt something strange. This wind will not take me around in a maze-like way, right? He frowned. To confirm whether it is spinning in place, he would create some reference points. With a slight movement in his mind, he waved his palm and released the remaining small part of the freezing power and threw it in other directions. This whole void was like the turbulent layer of the earth, with countless whirlpools in different directions. But as long as it is a whirlpool, there will be differences in size. Just throw the ice cube into the small whirlpool, and after a certain period of time, you can calculate whether your position is spinning in place. With Li Yi's knowledge and brainpower, this is not difficult. In a blink of an eye, 3 minutes later, he observed a wave of ice crystals swirling not far away, and his heart moved slightly. After calculation, he had confirmed that he was indeed spinning. About every 15 minutes, he would complete a circle and return to the origin. The reason why he failed to notice it was, on the one hand, there was a lack of reference objects visible to the naked eye, and on the other hand, it was because the flow rate was too fast and there were too many interferences, which affected his own positioning judgment. However, at this moment, relying on these ice crystals, he was able to barely calculate the flow model of the surrounding vortexes and roughly calculate where his teammates were. Immediately, he did not hold back and directly entered the 3.2 burst skill. Boom. This is where he is superior to others. Even though his divinity was suppressed by most of the time and most of the characteristics could not be activated, his burst skills did not require too much characteristic power at all. What he needed was just fine control, and through fine control, he could make the body burst out with greater power. Therefore, when he understood the situation of these vortices, he jumped out decisively. His figure floated like a leaf. The high-speed airflow formed by the high-speed vibration of his body adjusted the surrounding vortexes. He swung his body and flew out with the power of the vortex, jumping onto another airflow vortex. He turned half a circle, shook his body again, changed the direction of the airflow, and jumped again. After that, he spread ice crystals to locate himself. Not bad, I can barely fly out. Li Yi felt the extremely strong suction force on the vortex, which was comparable to gravity, and was amazed in his heart. Even with a 3.2 burst skill, his movements were still not that fast here. Fortunately, although each vortex took a lot of time, he could move after all. He calculated the position of Qin Longquan and others before, and it took nearly 30 minutes to finally move to a position where he could see Qin Longquan. And this position was reached much earlier than Li Yi expected. This shows that Qin Longquan also found a way to move in the vortex, but not as fast as Li Yi. At this moment, Qin Longquan also looked like he was sitting cross-legged in the vortex, lost in thought. It was not until a certain moment when Li Yi was close to the range of the 7 whirlpools that he seemed to notice something and looked up. The moment he looked up, the divine light in his eyes suddenly penetrated several whirlpools and accurately reached in front of Li Yi. This amazing divine light was like a high-intensity laser, which was very amazing. Li Yi's heart moved, and he blinked quickly, using the frequency of blinking his eyes to transmit Morse code. In this high-speed airflow that is many times higher than the speed of sound, sound cannot be transmitted at all, and information can only be conveyed by this kind of eye contact. Qin Longquan was also surprised when he saw Li Yi. It is said that Li Yi has amazing brain power, but now it seems that this is probably not just amazing. With him here, there is a way to solve this crisis. Chapter 362, Suspicion. Li Yi and Qin Longquan communicated very quickly in Morse code. Morse code is not difficult and is one of the basic subjects of human mecha masters. It didn't take them long to exchange their information. Sure enough, Qin Bangzhang also discovered that this place is a large vortex maze. You must take the initiative to escape from the vortex to escape from this suppressed situation. Li Yi began to cross over to Qin Longquan. Qin Longquan's strength is naturally far better than Li Yi, but his overall speed of jumping out of the vortex is not as fast as Li Yi. Although he also has relatively strong academic ability, he is indeed inferior to Li Yi in this kind of mathematical expertise. Although Li Yi has not yet achieved perfect mathematical application, it is not a big problem to apply the various aspects of knowledge he has mastered in detail. Therefore, when he jumps out of the vortex, he can use less time to choose the appropriate escape machine. This process is like using the vortex to form a slingshot-like catapult effect. If you don't grasp the precise speed and timing of escape, it is likely to deviate from the direction and go in the opposite direction. A few minutes later, the two of them converged in the same air vortex, and finally they were able to talk without eye contact. Li Yi, your calculation ability is really good. Can you calculate the approximate position and direction of the others? Qin Longquan was not ashamed of being outdone by the young man. He praised Li Yi and asked questions directly. Li Yi said, if the time is short, it should not be a problem to find them, then I will rely on you. Qin Longquan smiled and said with emotion, I can't refuse to admit my age. I am an old guy, but I am far inferior to you in calculation. Captain Qin, you are joking. I just relied on the mathematical formulas for vortex calculation that I happened to learn before, so I can calculate it quickly. No need to be modest. Next, you have to guide the vortex to leave the direction, so that we can find our teammates. Li Yi took a look at Qin Longquan and felt that this guy was quite different from the rumors. Isn't it said that Qin Longquan has a bad temper, and Lu Yansheng is not as good as him? Why do I feel that Qin Longquan is like an old good guy the more I get to know him? However, although Li Yi was surprised, he did not show it and replied, in that case, please follow closely, Qin Bang. I have just tried and figured out the law of the vortex. Now we need to speed up, no problem. Although I am not good at calculations, I can guarantee the speed. Qin Longquan smiled slightly. Li Yi did not waste words, and his muscles outside his body trembled, and he moved forward quickly. Watching Li Yi's body bouncing movements up close, Qin Longquan's eyes lit up slightly, and he nodded secretly, thinking, what a wonderful way to control airflow with a flush. It is said that the new bodybuilding method invented by Li Yi is very exquisite. Now I see that it is unexpectedly clever. If it continues to develop like this, won't it be possible to achieve all kinds of wonderful and incredible means with the flesh? It seems that the future direction of mankind is mostly on this kid. Next, it depends on whether he can realize his true talent as soon as possible. This kid should not have realized what his true talent is, or he has realized it, but has not consciously gone in this direction to execute it. Qin Longquan kept observing Li Yi and followed closely all the way. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. In the air vortex, two figures quickly rushed out. As Li Yi said, with his grasp of the vortex law, even if the divine repressive power is still there, he can still maintain a higher speed and continue to jump. In a moment, he reached twice the speed of the previous escape. Qin Longquan saw it and was even more amazed. Not long after, The two saw the rest of the people from afar and joined one after another. During the meeting, everyone found that the vortex was spinning in place, and each showed their magical powers and left a certain position, which created a lot of difficulties for Li Yi's search. Fortunately, everyone did not run far, so the situation was fine. However, when looking for He Guang, an accident happened. Li Yi looked around the vortex according to the calculated location of the vortex, but he didn't see him. Lu Yansheng frowned and said, "What is the situation of this Guotao Divine Mountain? Chief Qin, didn't you say before that there would be a so-called trial when entering here? Is this the group battle trial?" "No, if the trial of Guotao Divine Mountain is triggered, there will be a mysterious voice to remind you, the ruins of Mars and Saturn, including the one that Li Yi entered at the entrance to the Earth, are all like this," Qin Longchuan explained. "Why, maybe some accident caused some problems with this entrance, but what exactly was the accident? For example, the Xianshan prison itself is Pluto, and the moon is a satellite of the Earth. Perhaps these two entrances were transformed by other eras after the first era, resulting in this kind of change." After listening to Qin Longchuan's explanation, several people felt that this was a possibility. Tan Yaozu pondered and said, "Captain Qin, how did you find out that Heng Suo entered this entrance? Surveillance? Or based on traces on the ground?" Qin Longchuan glanced at Tan Yaozu, knowing what he meant, and smiled. "Do you suspect that Heng Suo did not really enter here?" Tan Yaozu nodded slightly and said, "I wonder if Heng Suo knew about this place a long time ago. His original goal might be to wait for a top powerhouse like Captain Qin, and then set a trap in one fell swoop." Hearing this, everyone frowned. "Nonsense," Lu Yansheng retorted directly. "The God-suppressing prison is a key area managed by so many powerful humans and experts for more than 200 years. How could an alien race like Heng Suo know its secrets?" Zhao He shook his head. "That may not be the case. The Star Clan even knows that there is a sacred mountain of enlightenment on Earth. They even know that Li Yi triggered the entrance and activated the resuscitator. It can be seen that they must have some information and some understanding of the ruins in our silent star domain. The God-suppressing prison is essentially a relic passed down from the first era. It is not impossible that they set a trap using some information that we don't know." Lu Yansheng paused for a moment, his face looking grim. "What should we do?" Li Yi comforted him. "This is just the worst-case scenario. Brother Lu, don't be like this. Stay calm. How about this? We split into 3 groups, each searching in one direction, and return to this vortex within half an hour. Don't make any mistakes," Qin Longchuan said. "I will be in one group. Li Yi, you are fast. You and Lao Lu will be in one group, searching in the direction against the wind. Lao Tan and Lao Zhao, you two will be in one group, searching in the direction with the wind." Everyone nodded. At this point, it seems that this is the only way. As for the method of getting out of the vortex, everyone knows it. It's just a matter of speed. As they were talking, everyone immediately got out of the vortex and quickly jumped away. Chapter 363 Shock. Lu Yansheng followed Li Yi and flew quickly. He was the strongest man after all, with the strongest divinity. Even if most of his divinity was suppressed by the vortex of airflow, he could still exert a good driving force of divinity. Moreover, his Sea King divinity could appropriately freeze a part of the airflow coming close to him, reducing the suppression force on himself. Under the precise leadership of Li Yi, more than 20 vortices quickly jumped out, went upstream, and jumped in the general direction of the airflow. Because this place is neither above nor below, there are vortices in all directions, and if you are not careful, you will be rolled in an oblique direction, making it more difficult for everyone to find it. So if the 3 groups divided by the crowd are unlucky and fail to find it, the longer the delay, the greater the probability of subsequent variables. Along the way, Lu Yansheng did not speak the whole time. Li Yi looked back at Lu Yansheng in surprise, and he felt a little impressed by Lu Yansheng. It is said that a person's character is best reflected when encountering things. As a comrade in arms for many years, if Lu Yansheng encountered something that might happen to He Guangzi and chatted with him without any care, Li Yi would look down on Lu Yansheng in his heart. This also shows that the comradeship between Lu Yansheng and He Guangzi is not ordinary. In a blink of an eye, under Li Yi's precise calculation ability, the two have jumped over nearly 40 whirlpools, and half an hour is almost up. Li Yi stopped and did not move forward, but let the whirlpool drive his body to rotate backwards. "Why don't you move?" Lu Yansheng frowned. "It's time, Brother Lu. We have walked far enough. We have been keeping an eye on the surroundings all the way, but we have not found anything. It is obvious that the route we are on is probably not the route that brother he took, Li Yu said. Moreover, if brother he was really captured by Hengser, their speed is unlikely to be twice as fast as ours. After all, in this environment, if one more person is held hostage, it is equivalent to adding several times the burden, and it is impossible to go faster. Even if his calculation speed is several times that of mine, there is no way to erase it, because there is only one optimal route. No matter how much he speeds up along the vortex, this fixed time consumption will definitely exist. On the other hand, if brother he was not captured, but had some special means to escape the suppression of these vortices, then our blind search has almost reached its limit. Lu Yansheng took a deep breath. You are right, Li Yi, let's go back as soon as possible and change the route to search. The two immediately returned along the same route. When they reached the 12th vortex, gulp, gulp, a strange sound came over. First, it was like the tentative beating of a war drum. The sound was deep, but not powerful enough. Then, boom, boom, boom. The sound of the drum was getting louder and louder. The sound had unparalleled penetrating power and vibration power, radiating from a distance in an instant, with almost no delay. Li Yu's eardrums hurt. He immediately activated the power of micro-vibration and extended the microscale to the level of 80 nanometers, which made him feel a little better. The absolute power contained in this sound was stronger than any sound he had seen in the past. Even the thunder that occurred when he saw the mysterious thought being guided into the world last time was far less grand, heavy, and gloomy than this moment. Turning his head to look at Lu Yanshen, this guy also looked very uncomfortable. The strongest divinity kept flowing in his ears, and the freezing power was constantly stimulated to resist the continuous pressure in this sound. While the two were resisting the pressure of the sound, they suddenly saw an extremely huge mecha in the high place in front of them, slowly showing its shape. The mecha was very huge, like a planet. The two focused their eyes and saw the amazing details of this planetary mecha at once. The outer shell of this huge mecha was covered with heavy armor, and each armor plate was as big as a city. Its joints slowly stretched and retracted, and each movement was accompanied by a shocking roar, which made Li Yi and Lu Yansheng's eardrums more and more painful. The head was like a towering mountain, and countless fine armor plates were as dense as a forest. Boom! Boom! This planetary mecha passed over the heads of the two people, passing through like a phantom. The two were dumbfounded. So many details, such a shocking divine mecha, was just an illusion. After a while, the trembling sound in their ears gradually subsided. The illusion of the planetary mecha also disappeared. The two gasped for breath. Just when they were about to be hit by this huge mecha, they had no chance to avoid it at all. Adrenaline surged through their bodies, but they were helpless, just like ordinary people facing a super large earthquake. There really is a planetary divine mecha. The shock in Lu Yansheng's eyes lasted for a long time. Li Yu was also shocked, thinking of the memory of Dawn disciple Yi that he had obtained in the Enlightenment Mountain last time. He still remembered that the goal of this Yi was to build a planetary divine mecha, right? From the glimpse just now, it seems that many details are quite similar to the pictures in memory. It seems that the secrets hidden in this Enlightenment Mountain are definitely extraordinary, Li Yu said. I have a hunch that a huge change seems to be about to happen here. Let's go back as soon as possible. Lu Yansheng had no objection. About 10 minutes later, everyone gathered one after another. Lu Yansheng mentioned the illusion of witnessing a planetary mecha, which caused everyone to be surprised. What, you didn't see it? No, we don't have it here either. Li Yi and Lu Yansheng looked at each other. Qin Longchuan pondered for a moment and said, it seems that the entrance to this god-suppressing prison is much more special than other entrances. Li Yi, do you have any other discoveries? Li Yi shook his head. Tan Yaozu also said, we haven't seen any trace of Lao He either. Li Yu looked at Qin Longchuan. Chief Qin, let's search in another direction again. Even if we can't find it, we can collect various data on these air vortexes and calculate how to leave this area. What do you think? Zhao He said, indeed, these cyclones are endless. We can't just waste time here. Moreover, it would be best if we can find our divine mecha. In this place, it's always unsafe without a divine mecha. Qin Longchuan nodded slightly. That's it, let's rotate the directions that we didn't search just now. While everyone was talking, suddenly, gulp, gulp. Hearing this, Li Yi and Lu Yansheng's faces changed. It was this voice again. Everyone protect your ears, it's the planetary divine mecha. Before Li Yi's reminder fell, everyone seemed to have noticed something, and looked up together. Their faces changed drastically. I saw that a majestic super mecha suddenly appeared in front of everyone. This mecha was much shorter than the planetary mecha we had just seen, but it was also as big as the moon, which was quite astonishing. It took a big step, and its dark feet passed over everyone's heads, blocking their vision like a dark cloud covering the sky. Chapter 364 Star Map. The giant foot was as huge as a battleship. When it passed over the heads of the crowd, it kept falling. It was obviously an illusion, but it suppressed the surrounding air vortexes and made them roll wildly. Fuck, is this thing an illusion? Why is it still pressing down? Lu Yansheng's forehead was bulging with veins. The strong pressure of the giant foot and the huge roar produced when the joints stretched and contracted were transmitted to everyone's body. They felt a huge load, which was more serious than overclocking in the divine Mecha. Among the crowd, only Qin Longquan was in good condition. The second was Li Yi. Although Li Yi's divinity was weaker than others and the total amount was insufficient, his physical strength was not much inferior. With the 80 nanometer level subtle force defense, his condition was much better. However, even so, everyone still didn't have much chance to move. Everyone was suppressed and could only move in a small range around them. They couldn't speed up and couldn't get out of the surrounding air vortex at all. Fortunately, before the giant foot was about to touch them, it turned into an illusion and disappeared again. The real pressure seemed to be fake. Everyone was sweating profusely, and they were still frightened. Lu Yansheng reached out to wipe the sweat off his forehead and said, "There is a problem. Why are we sweating so much? We have experienced the greatest life and death terrors. Although this thing is amazing, it is not so terrifying." Lu Yansheng's words resonated with everyone. Tanyaozu nodded and said, "When the illusion appeared, I seemed to be unable to control my body. This situation seems to be not as simple as divine suppression. Most likely, it is some kind of conceptual characteristic that has evolved to a certain level." Zhao He looked at Li Yi and asked, "Is this what you just encountered?" "No." Li Yi shook his head. "In fact, the one we encountered before was even bigger, as big as the Earth. And this one just now, although the sense of oppression is stronger, the height is only equivalent to the size of the moon, which is far behind." Several people looked at each other and were all a little shocked. "This enlightenment mountain is indeed amazing." Tanyaozu asked, "Captain Qin, have you encountered such horrific illusions at other entrances before?" "No." Qin Longquan shook his head. "Of course, if you had encountered such a situation before, you would have been warned. Everything you encounter here is different from before, so everyone should be as careful as possible. First, Guangzi, and then this illusion that could completely suppress everyone." Everyone's heart was overwhelmed. However, what should be done must be done. Everyone quickly separated according to the previous grouping and jumped in different directions. In the blink of an eye, 15 minutes passed. Lu Yansheng said, "Good brother, do you think Lao He also encountered a Mecha Phantom and had an accident?" Li Yu said, "This possibility cannot be ruled out, but even if we encountered such a huge Mecha Phantom, I'm afraid we would have noticed it at the time. After all, we were not separated that far at the time. A planet-sized phantom, unless it is just a two-dimensional scene, we must be able to see it from afar." Lu Yansheng said, "Then tell me, what we just saw, was it a two-dimensional scene or a holographic illusion?" Li Yu shook his head and said, "I can't tell, it's too huge. Our field of vision is suppressed. Even if we see a two-dimensional scene, we will probably take it as a three-dimensional picture. To make an analogy, it is equivalent to seeing a planetary-sized light curtain. On this light curtain, we are too small to easily see the essence of the image." Lu Yansheng nodded. "In that case, Lao He should be safe for the time being." Li Yu looked at Lu Yansheng in surprise. Lu Yansheng smiled and said, "You ruled out this possibility, and I also ruled out the possibility that he was caught by Hang Suor, so we can temporarily assume that he is safe." "Brother Lu, how do you know that he was not caught by Hang Suor?" Lu Yansheng said, "I was very close to the place where Lao He was blown away. I was separated from him for almost 10 minutes before you found me. I was not calm enough before and didn't think it through, but now I think about it carefully. If they really had a big fight within a 10-minute range, I would definitely see it." Li Yu nodded slightly and recognized Lu Yansheng's judgment. With Lu Yansheng's current vision, there was no obvious obstruction here, even if he was blown away and gradually lost sight of He Guangzi. But if a strong man like Hang Suor squeezed in and He Guangzi resisted, it would produce a lot of obvious divine flames. Of course, there is another possibility. That is, He Guangzi faced Hang Su'er without any resistance, and couldn't even use his ultimate move. But this is unlikely, because in this special air vortex environment, the combat power of both people was sharply suppressed, and the gap would be reduced instead. In this scenario, it would be difficult for Hang Su'er to easily defeat He Guangzi. Thinking of this, Li Yi suddenly had an idea, as if there was a flash of lightning in his mind. I think brother he may have encountered a special air vortex and was taken to a special place. I can't say for sure. Lu Yansheng's eyes lit up. Why? Li Yi said, I have always felt strange before, why these air vortices are spinning in place, and none of them produce rotation outside the rules. After all, in addition to the vortices everywhere, this entire area also has a super airflow that encompasses all the vortices. Just like the core sun that wraps the movement of the earth and the moon, it seems that they all follow the core of the sun's movement, but in fact, there is still a comet that crosses the orbits of all the planets. Hearing this, Lu Yansheng was shocked and said, you mean, these air vortices are actually simulations of a large star map, and old he was caught in that comet-like airflow? Li Yu said, yes, that's right. What we have to do next is to deduce this comet airflow, a special airflow that can cross all the vortices. Fuck, brother, you are such a genius. How do we calculate that? I haven't figured it out yet, but theoretically, through this airflow, we can get out of this area and reach the real Wudao mountain, Li Yi said calmly. Lu Yansheng's mouth twitched slightly. Hearing Li Yi's confidence, he thought Li Yi had it all figured out. Okay, then you take your time to think about it. There's no rush. Since this is possible, there's no need to worry about Lao He's safety. No, it's urgent, because these airflows are unpredictable. Every time those mecha phantoms appear, these vortices will be slightly adjusted. If they appear a few more times, I'm afraid we will completely lose the clue to get out. If we're unlucky, we might be trapped here for the rest of our lives. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelis. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 365 Drawing. What should we do? Lu Yansheng also became serious. If it is really as Li Yi said, then the situation is dangerous. If there are one or two more mecha phantoms during their separation, wouldn't it be easy for them to get separated? First, meet up and draw the star map represented by these whirlpools, Li Yi said. I have all the star map data of our silent star region and the neighboring scorching star region in my mind. Although it is not comprehensive, I should be able to identify which star region these cyclones represent through some star map features. As long as we can figure out which star region they belong to, then we can probably find a route that can escape the range of all gravity. Lu Yansheng's eyes lit up. I understand, this is a good idea. But what if the star map represented is not in our silent star region or the scorching star region? What should we do? No matter, let's take it one step at a time, Li Yi shrugged. Okay, seeing that you are so relaxed, there should be a way. Let's go, Lu Yansheng called out and started to move. After staying in this cyclone for such a long time, he also calculated the precise time to escape. Even a reckless man like Lu Yansheng is not really unlearned. As a mecha master, he can still flexibly apply all kinds of basic knowledge. About 20 minutes later, everyone gathered again. This time, the combination of Tan Yaozu and Zhao He also encountered the mecha phantom alone. Tan Yaozu's face was slightly pale, and he exhaled. I have seen what you call planetary level mechas. It is indeed amazing. However, Lao Zhao and I both believe that in terms of oppression and the suppression of the body, the one we experienced is much better than the previous lunar level mecha. Both of us can hardly move our hearts. Don't be afraid of you laughing at us. We can't even control our physical bodies. Not only does our heart stop, but even our excretion. At this point, Zhao He coughed lightly. Lao Tan, that's enough. There is no need to describe it in such detail. The three of them had no extra expressions. In normal times, Lu Yansheng would definitely laugh at Tan Yaozu. But having personally experienced two mecha phantoms and clearly felt the horror of those mecha phantoms, Lu Yansheng was not in the mood to laugh. Qin Longchuan pondered and said, in other words, the planetary level mecha phantoms you encountered this time are stronger, The reason why he asked this was because Liu Yunsheng and Li Yi had clearly stated before that the load caused by the planetary-level mecha phantoms encountered for the first time was not as great as the lunar-level mecha phantoms encountered for the second time. Zhao He said, yes, so I suspect that the intensity of these mecha phantoms will increase every time they appear. Li Yi said, Chief Qin, have you gained anything? Qin Longquan shook his head. Seeing this, Li Yi simply put forward his own conjecture. This conjecture was quickly recognized by everyone, and they didn't waste any words and quickly drew the cyclone shape, size, position, direction, etc. that they had recorded along the way. However, there was no handy drawing tool at hand, and it was not easy to draw with reference to each other. Li Yi immediately said, I am good at painting. Please give me detailed data, and I will use my divinity to draw it. Tan Yaozu looked at Li Yi and said, let me draw it. I majored in the coordination characteristics. I have a lot of experience in painting, images, and data and image conversion skills. After all, Li Yi, you don't have enough divinity. There is no need to waste so much divinity. As he said that, he moved his fingers, and the coordination divinity flew out from his fingertips, turning into silk threads, and quickly drew the two cyclone maps he had explored along the way. The coordination divinity was seen to emit a faint golden light, with a light color, and the lines it turned into were as beautiful as crystal stones. In the blink of an eye, these light golden silk threads were crisscrossed, resisting the blowing of the airflow, and stabilized steadily at his fingertips, forming a silk thread picture. Seeing this, everyone nodded slightly. After Tan Yaozu was promoted to the strongest, the strength of this divinity was significantly enhanced again, and it could also release the coordination characteristics to dissolve the chaotic airflow around, which was very stable. With just this one move, it can be seen that Tan Yaozu's divine control skills are already quite proficient, and are truly perfect level skills. Qin Longquan praised, not bad, after you advance to the strongest level, Lao Tan, this divine control is more stable, if nothing else. As he spoke, he stretched out his finger and a wisp of divinity was released from his fingertips. Suddenly, the airflow that hit the cyclone map was frozen, forming time and space ice crystals, solidifying in place, blocking the external airflow. At the same time, two more paths of cyclones appeared on Tan Yaozu's cyclone map, distributed in various places, in a dark blue color, adding another color to the light golden cyclone map. This move is obviously more brilliant and stronger than Tan Yaozu's. Whether it is the speed of drawing or the suppression of the surrounding cyclones, it is obviously much stronger. After all, that one move has frozen the time and space where the airflow is located. Seeing everyone looking at him with admiration, Qin Longquan smiled slightly. Although there is no way to completely resist the divine suppression of this cyclone, it is still no problem to slightly suppress the space and time around this cyclone map. Li Yi was about to start drawing, but Liu Yunsheng stretched out his hand to stop him and said, Good brother, you have been calculating which route is easier to take all the way. I can't let you work all the time. Let me draw our route here. As he said that, Liu Yunsheng also flicked his fingers and flicked the rolled-up Sea King divinity to the cyclone map in front. This small ball of Sea King divinity attached to the space-time ice crystal frozen by Qin Longquan, and immediately formed another layer of frozen layer, forming cyclone maps of the other two paths. These two cyclone maps are very long, and each path includes 40 or 50 cyclones, which is more than 10 more than the other two groups. Obviously, this is exactly where Li Yi's calculation power came into play, allowing the group to pass through more cyclones. Tan Yaozu praised, You are worthy of it. Hearing this, Liu Yunsheng smiled reservedly. You are flattered. Tan Yaozu glanced at Liu Yunsheng. I said that Li Yi's calculation ability is excellent, and I didn't praise you. The speed of your drawing is so-so. Liu Yunsheng pretended to be angry and said, You are enough, old Tan. The tense mood of the people suddenly relaxed a little. Li Yi stared at the 6 explored paths on the cyclone map, which were in all directions, and began to match the star map of the silent star domain he had seen before. Not only Li Yi, but others were also observing silently, hoping to find some clues. Liu Yunsheng looked around and had no clues, so he gave up struggling. He looked at the others and saw that everyone was frowning, and his heart sank. Good brother, do you see any clues? It's hard to say. I vaguely feel that the cyclone map depicts the silent star domain of the first era. Li Yi frowned. Chapter 366 Attempt. The star map of our silent star region in the first era, Everyone carefully identified and indeed saw some familiar features. Hey, take a closer look. Isn't the vortex shape in the cyclone the Seton galaxy? Tanyaozu pointed to a cyclone and said in surprise. This cyclone was the second path Qin Longchuan took, right at the end. Everyone looked over immediately. Zhao He pondered and said, it does look like it. Although the cyclone of the Seton galaxy is relatively special in our star region, it is flat in proportion and has 12 planets. The cyclone here also has 12 different vortex tracks. Moreover, the Seton galaxy is also a galaxy with a relatively old history. It is indeed good to have this as a reference. Everyone gradually recognized Tanyaozu's judgment. Li Yu pointed to the cyclone in the middle of the path that Zhao He's group took and said, if we take the Seton galaxy as the base point, then this cyclone is our solar system. It seems that in the first era, the laws of operation in the solar system are different from our current ones, but the overall difference is not big. Everyone has enough basic knowledge of astronomy. After a lot of discussion, they quickly figured out the original star map of the entire Silent Star region. Although there are still many incomplete parts, just being able to figure out the original star map of the first era will help humans decipher another batch of astronomical data. After all, some deciphering only requires solving language problems, while other deciphering requires solving civilization-related problems. At the same time, with the help of the differences in the star maps of the present and ancient times, Li Yu also calculated the special path that can pass through dozens of cyclones. For the sake of convenience, Li Yu called this path the comet path. Li Yu, are you sure this path is okay? Zhao He asked. Theoretically, it's fine, but if we encounter the Mecha Phantom again, we may have to make a fine adjustment. Since we are not sure when and where we will encounter these Mecha Phantoms, we must do it as soon as possible, Li Yu replied. Upon hearing this, everyone set off quickly without hesitation. As the saying goes, everyone has their own expertise. Since Li Yu has shown his strengths in calculation and astronomy, let's leave it to him. Whoosh! 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 Everyone immediately jumped out of the current vortex. According to Li Yu's calculation, we must first find the starting point of the comet's path, or its passing point, before we can catch this airflow and leave this area. Coincidentally, in the areas that everyone has explored so far, this path has been accurately avoided. It is no wonder that everyone has not found He Guangzi in these two searches. In a blink of an eye, half an hour passed. The 5 people formed a goose formation and quickly shuttled through the air vortex. Their speed is essentially due to the high-speed flow of the air vortex, exerting force at the critical moment to produce a gravitational slingshot effect. In fact, as time goes by, their divinity is suppressed and weakened. Everyone also felt a sense of urgency. If they cannot find the comet path before the divinity is completely suppressed, then there is a great possibility that this group of people will be completely destroyed in this area until they lack food, lack energy, and their bodies collapse and die. Unfortunately, it rains all night. At the 30th minute, a deep and strange sound came. Everyone's eyes suddenly changed. Damn, is the 4th Mecha Phantom coming? It will obviously reach the vicinity of the comet path soon. Gudong, gudong. First, there were seemingly insignificant drum sounds. Continuing, the sound became more and more grand and shocking, as if the world was collapsing before their eyes. Focus on protecting your eardrums and brains. This time it will be stronger. Don't be shocked to death if you are not careful. Everyone quickly activated a large amount of divinity in the bottom of the box to protect their heads and eardrums. Li Yu directly enhanced the strength and toughness of the eardrums with the characteristics of deformation, super elasticity, and extreme hardness, and at the same time superimposed 80 nanometers of subtle force. Boom! Finally, the incomparable vibration sound penetrated everything, penetrated countless cyclones, and came to everyone. Tanyaozu and Lu Yansheng's faces changed drastically. They were in the position where they were the first to bear the brunt. Then came Zhao He and Li Yi. Li Yu had basically exhausted all his core means except for the 3.2 burst skill, but he did not expect that this wave of vibration was so fierce that even he could not bear it. His internal organs were trembling, and even the cells were passively resonating, unable to play their normal functions. If it were not for his deep attainments in subtle strength, this wave of situation would definitely be bad. He opened his eyes and looked over, and saw Lu Yansheng and Tanyaozu, with blood oozing from their mouths and blue eyes. It seemed that even their souls were severely impacted, and their breath became very weak. Zhao He, who was beside him, also had an ugly face, and the veins on the back of his hands were bulging, like a pile of dense green snakes. Only Qin Longquan's face did not show any expression, but seeing that he never spoke, it was obvious that he was not feeling well and had no spare energy. Everyone realized that the Mecha Phantom had reached a fatal level. I don't know how long it will take. Li Yi's forehead was covered with sweat, and his heart was trembling, as if it would burst his chest at any time. Damn, how long will it take for this Mecha Phantom to disappear? Why is it so long? Li Yi also tried to enter the dream plane to relieve the pain. But when he entered the dream plane, he found that his body had lost its subtle power and became more vulnerable. He had to stay online and continue to activate this subtle vibration power, so that his body would be better. This is not a solution. It's better to use this power to strengthen my body. This power is a conceptual characteristic, but when it works, it also suppresses my body at the nano level. In this case, then try to guide this power, let this power be used by me, and strengthen my body. Li Yi thought about it and tried it quickly. First, the 3.2 burst skill and the 2.0 version of the brain super lifting technique. Boom! A strong roar came from the body. This was the sound of resonance in the subtle parts of his body as he tried to guide the repressive force. Puff! Li Yi opened his mouth and spat out a mouthful of blood. The blood stasis caused by the compression of his internal organs was pushed away by him. All parts of his body seemed to be activated. As he turned on the nanosensor to 60 nanometers and guided the repressive force in various places, his state became a little easier. However, this set of techniques also consumed a lot of his energy, so he could only use it as an emergency measure to see if he could hold on. However, the outrageous thing was that the Mecha Phantom suppressed everyone for a very long time this time. Li Yi estimated in his heart that it had exceeded more than 3 minutes. You know, the last time it was only a little over a minute, and in such a short time, it tortured them to death. Ice Wave Hammer of Chaos C, fix it for me. At this time, Lu Yansheng seemed to be unable to bear it, so he could only release the big move left behind to relieve the pressure. Chapter 367 Growth. The height of this newly appeared Mecha Phantom is shorter, about half the height of the moon. It is about 1 kilometer away from everyone. An ice hammer condensed out of thin air and hit the majestic Mecha Phantom in the distance. Boom! Countless cyclones in the surrounding area froze instantly, forming an ultra-long ice road that spanned 1 kilometer. In the blink of an eye, it hit the Mecha Phantom and exploded a 100-meter-high ice flower. The power of this attack is enough to rival the full-strength attack of the top E-class Mecha. Although Lu Yansheng's divinity was suppressed a lot, at the critical moment, he still urged a lot of divinity left in his body and struck hard. Although he was very likely to run out of energy after this attack and could no longer defend himself, he would be instantly swallowed up by the cyclone on the spot and directly crush his body. But he also understood that if he didn't do something, he would definitely die if it continued, so he took the initiative to break the deadlock. After this move, Lu Yansheng withered. Tanyaozu immediately reached out and grabbed him, activating the cooperative characteristic to help Lu Yansheng suppress the cyclone. At the same time, everyone also clearly found that after Lu Yansheng's attack, although the Mecha Phantom did not change much, there was only a small ice flower on the leg, like a small spike. But the pressure on everyone was obviously reduced a lot. About half a minute later, the Mecha Phantom finally disappeared. Well done, you are worthy of it. Tanyaozu patted Lu Yansheng on the shoulder. Lu Yansheng glanced at Tanyaozu weakly and said speechlessly, only at this time are you willing to praise me. Li Yi praised, Brother Lu, you are decisive, you are worthy of it. Everyone looked at each other and smiled. That's right, Lao Lu, you are worthy of it. Everyone was still in a good mood after escaping death. Although the Mecha Phantom will most likely be more ferocious next time, with Lu Yun's experience, there is always a way to alleviate it. Let's go, Lao Tan, I'll take care of Lao Lu. I still have a lot of energy left. Qin Longquan reached out and took Lu Yansheng over. Lu Yansheng was really exhausted this time. If his teammates didn't help, he would definitely not be able to withstand this terrifying cyclone pressure alone. After this time of forging the body with a Mecha Phantom, Li Yi has not yet figured out a relatively mature guidance method. But he has gained a lot. Not only has his physical strength improved a little, but he has also condensed 2 divine genes. It can be seen how terrifying this huge load from the Mecha Phantom is. The effect of just a few minutes of forging is higher than that of his own body forging method. Although his past body forging experience also played a role, at this moment, it is undoubtedly the more powerful effect brought by this heavy pressure that penetrates into the nanometer scale. Great strength brings miracles, nothing more than this. By the way, the two newly condensed divine genes are both immortal divine genes. This made Li Yu think a little more. It seems that different body forging methods can also increase different divine genes. Like the previous Xiangang method, the 4 common sequences of the divine genes of wind, fire, thunder and ice are involved. The Sea King transfiguration method should also be able to promote the corresponding divine genes. But when he used the Sea King transfiguration method last time, there was no divine gene generated, so he could not confirm this conjecture. When the Zilu transfiguration method is perfected, or other bodybuilding methods are created, maybe we can test it. However, we can only try it later. In any case, at this moment, his immortal divine genes have reached 6. The comprehensive vitality and endurance have undoubtedly increased by a small wave. He didn't calculate the specific lifespan, but he estimated that it would not be inferior to that of the average strongest, and even better. While thinking and reviewing, Li Yu was also leading the team quickly, speeding all the way, trying to find the comet path as soon as possible. 8 minutes later, everyone had completely moved away from the original exploration range. Lu Yansheng's strength recovered slightly, but he still couldn't resist the pressure of the cyclone. Except for Qin Longquan, everyone was in a state of great consumption, breathing heavily and sweating profusely. Everyone gritted their teeth and persisted. No one asked a question, questioning whether Li Yi had made a mistake. Finally, after another 3 minutes, everyone finally found the calculated comet path and observed the trajectory of the airflow with their naked eyes. They were all surprised. Whoosh! Everyone waded into it one after another and floated down the stream. Fuck! Finally relaxed, Lu Yansheng had recovered a little at this moment. Although he was still protected by Qin Longquan, he could speak with full energy. Everyone was also relieved. Li Yi, the facts prove that your calculation ability is the highest among us. I'm afraid that Duanmu may not be able to do better than you, Zhao Li smiled. It's just a fluke that I encountered the field I am good at. 6. According to what you said, you are good at too many fields, Lu Yansheng couldn't help but complain. How can we compare to you guys? Okay, don't be too happy. Even if we can get out of this cyclone area, if we go to the depths of Wudao Mountain, it will be a problem to go upstream and leave later, Qin Longquan said in a deep voice. The most urgent thing is to take this opportunity to quickly recover our physical strength and divinity, so as not to arrive at a trial area of Wudao Mountain, and we will not have extra strength to participate in the challenge. That would be just as serious. Everyone nodded when they heard this. It's not that they didn't know about this, but they were suppressed by the Mecha Phantom in the cyclone for so long, and they felt aggrieved and wanted to adjust their mentality. Immediately, everyone followed the blowing of the airflow, leaving only a small part of their strength to protect their bodies, and the rest were in meditation, hoping to recover. Unlike the previous swirling airflow, the internal pressure of this downstream airflow was still a little less. Therefore, everyone was much more relaxed and had the conditions to recover. If it was in other cyclones before, it would be good to be able to maintain it. In a blink of an eye, more than half an hour passed. I don't know if it's because they walked on the comet path, but they didn't encounter the Mecha Phantom again. During this period, Li Yu recovered quickly due to the body forging and the generation of the immortal divine gene. Along the way, he focused on the surrounding cyclones and memorized a star map from the first era. This is scarce information, and it is uncertain when it will be used in the future. In this boundless void, the airflow twisted and turned downward, and finally, everyone saw a towering mountain floating in the void from afar. This giant mountain seemed to be only the size of Mount Tai on Earth, not as big as the Mecha Phantom, and seemed not worth mentioning. But since everyone saw the giant mountain from afar, they have been walking along this airflow all the way, and the speed has been getting faster and faster, from dozens of times the speed of sound to hundreds of times the speed of sound. After walking for more than 3 hours, they saw that this towering mountain gradually became larger until it was as big as Saturn, and they were even more shocked. Damn, this Wudao Divine Mountain is so big? If we keep walking like this, won't it be bigger than a star? Chapter 368 Enlightenment. Everyone was shocked. Although they were still far away from the Wudao Mountain, they could clearly feel an incomparable majesty from it. This had already separated from some specific substance and became a conceptual image. This image was so vivid and so clear. The Wudao Mountain in everyone's mind became more and more mysterious. Moreover, as everyone got closer to this legendary Wudao Mountain, they seemed to be enlightened without realizing it. All the doubts that had been hidden in their hearts suddenly burst out with inspiration and were solved. For a while, everyone was intoxicated and didn't know how time passed. The various memories digested by Li Yi in the depths of his soul also seemed to be linked together, and they could evolve into new and more advanced knowledge and skills at any time. A few minutes later, Li Yi suddenly woke up. No. This state of enlightenment seems charming, but it is actually fake. It just gives a special feeling, as if you have understood many things. But in fact, those enlightened things are all false and a wrong guide. Li Yi has many parallel world memory references, and can clearly feel that these so-called enlightenment things cannot form any useful knowledge and skills. On the contrary, they will disintegrate the already formed knowledge system and go astray. The more you believe in these things, the lower your combat power will be. Li Yi was extremely vigilant and said, "Brothers, don't be too immersed in it. This state of enlightenment is poisonous." At the same time as Li Yi spoke, Qin Longchun also discovered the problem and said at the same time, "Beware of this state. Tighten your mind. If I'm not mistaken, this is the knowledge barrier that may exist in the third level of the trial of the Enlightenment Mountain. This is a trap specifically for cognition. It is pervasive. Once you sink into it, your cognition will be completely reversed, and then you will become a divine creature that has lost wisdom." Qin Longchun's voice contained a trace of divine power, which shocked everyone's mind. Suddenly, Zhao He, Lu Yunshen, and Tang Yaozu woke up one after another. The three knocked on their heads and felt dizzy, as if a lot of things were passively instilled into their heads. Li Yi was surprised and asked, "Has State Commander Qin seen these cognitive traps in the previous Wudao Mountain?" Qin Longchun shook his head and said, "It's the first time for me to see them either. I just got a little information when I was investigating the data. As far as I know, the first batch of divine creatures in ancient times were probably produced by the Wudao Mountain. I've read a legend, a long time ago, the first batch of intelligent creatures who mastered divinity failed to explore the Wudao Mountain. Their wisdom was directly cut off by the enlightenment image of the Wudao Mountain, and they became the guardian creatures around the Wudao Mountain, guarding the third-level trial area of the Wudao Mountain. Now that I think about it, maybe we accidentally crossed the first two trial areas by chance and came to this third trial area, and what we just experienced was the enlightenment image." Li Yi understood. Maybe the cyclone area we crossed contains the first and second levels, but for some reason, there is no more level-breaking reminder sound here. Qin Longchun nodded and said, "What you said makes sense." Li Yi said, "Captain Qin, can this enlightenment image only weaken people's wisdom? Or does it have other uses?" "According to the records, it is indeed so," Qin Longchun said, "but I learned from another ancient document that this enlightenment image actually has a chance to help people become enlightened and gain wisdom, or improve their soul level. However, the document does not clearly state how to do it, and it is difficult to confirm whether it is a rumor." Li Yi touched his chin and said, "I don't think it is a rumor. Although the time was very short, I did feel that the moment I broke free from this enlightenment image, my soul seemed to have been strengthened a little. Even if this growth is very small and not a big deal, it still exists, and it is not a perception error. May I ask if you have a similar feeling, Captain Qin?" Hearing this, Qin Longchun shook his head and said, "My perception is that although the soul has been slightly stimulated, there is basically no growth." The other people also said that they did not have any special feelings. Li Yi fell into deep thought. Could it be because he has the dream plane? Although the guidance given was wrong, he had many parallel memories and a strong ability to correct errors, so he could use these enlightenment images smoothly? He judged in his heart that this was probably the reason. If Qin Longchun and the others came a few more times, they should be able to gain soul growth. However, compared with the risk of falling into it, these little soul growths were insignificant. Maybe the enlightenment image would have other effects, but they just didn't trigger it for the time being. People like Li Yi who had a small gain were mostly abnormal. With this experience, everyone was naturally very vigilant and did not fall into this enlightenment image. But this also consumed a lot of energy, which was really a headache. They continued to accelerate along the airflow, and persisted for another 2 hours, and finally saw something else. Those were some small floating islands suspended outside the Wudao Divine Mountain. Some of these floating islands were like a skyscraper, and some were only an inch of land, with great differences in size. But no matter which one, it seemed to ignore the invasion and drive of the air vortex, and it was fixed there like an anchor in the ocean, which was very magical. "Hey, shit, isn't that guy Hangsuer?" Zhao He was observing these floating islands carefully, and his divinity gathered in his eyes. He immediately made a discovery and cried out in surprise. Everyone followed Zhao He's line of sight. In the depths of the floating islands, a figure of the Star Clan with a height of 1 or 2 meters was seen leaping between several floating islands, approaching the depths of the Guotao Divine Mountain. This figure was hidden among the islands, and his appearance was not really clear. But judging from his momentum, it seemed that there was no one else except Hang Su'er. Hang Su'er is here, and Lao He is probably around here too. Lao He, don't let this guy Hang Su'er kill him, Lu Yansheng muttered, constantly turning his eyes, looking for the figure of Li Guangzi. Others also gathered their divinity in their eyes, using their own methods to strengthen their vision, or tracking Hang Su'er, or looking for Li Guangzi. Li Yi had the most tricks, with microelectric characteristics stimulating the visual nerves, deformation and superelastic characteristics transforming the eyeballs to form a compound eye plus eagle eye structure, and then stimulating the eyeballs with growth characteristics, constantly enlarging them. Not only that, he also had the ability to identify microscopic things, constantly searching for the subtle details of the floating islands in the distance. Not long after, he found traces of Li Guangzi's presence on various floating islands. However, he looked around and didn't see where Li Guangzi was. Could it be that, as Lu Yansheng said, he was killed by Hexer? His heart sank slightly. Chapter 369, Banned. Li Yi searched for a long time, but still couldn't find any other traces of Li Guangzi. Maybe it's the problem of the observation point. There are still too many obstructed places from here. Everyone could only comfort themselves in this way. After a while, everyone was blown by the airflow and approached the first outer floating island. Let's go up and take a look. Let's look separately to see if we can find Lao He, Zhao He suggested. Qin Longchuan nodded slightly. Let's split up into 2 groups. I'll go after Hangser. There will be traces left on the way. You search and see if you can find Lao He. Everyone naturally had no objection and flew forward quickly. Lu Yansheng's physical strength had recovered a lot at this time and he could move freely. This time, Li Yi and Tan Yaozu were in a group and searched the floating island on the left. Lu Yansheng and Zhao He were in a group and searched the route on the right. Because according to the strength ratio, Lu Yansheng's strength has dropped significantly. If he is in a group with Li Yi, the strength is uneven. Although Li Yi's strength at this moment is already very strong, after all, he has not really reached the strongest physical body, and the total amount of divinity is also much worse. Therefore, everyone still underestimated Li Yi's combat power. Li Yi had no objection to this. After all, this was an unfamiliar environment, not a time to show off. Even though his strength was no longer what it used to be, and he had made progress, he might as well be more cautious. Swoosh! The 5 people activated their strength and accelerated in the airflow. They were now going downstream, and they had a lot of time to recover before, so they naturally had the energy to accelerate. Especially Qin Longchuan, who was extremely fast. He was stimulated by the divine flame outside his body, and the snow-white flame pushed him. His body suddenly flashed, and he instantly accelerated to a level faster than a regular A-class mecha. He instantly crossed the range of more than 10 floating islands and accelerated to chase in the direction of Hangser. After all, he was the top strongest, and his strength was very close to that of a demigod. Even without controlling a divine mecha, he could still burst out at such an amazing speed. However, Zhao He was moved when he saw this scene, and he sent a message to everyone, "Everyone be careful." Lao Qin started the acceleration, and under this airflow acceleration, the speed should be at least half faster, but now it is much slower. It can be seen that there should be something that suppresses the speed in this floating island area. Be alert and don't be careless. Everyone actually felt it. When flying towards the floating island, the closer to the floating island, the heavier the body feels, and it is difficult to control it freely. Moreover, as soon as Zhao He spoke, everyone saw that the speed of Qin Longchuan, who was so cool just now, was getting slower and slower, as if the plane crashed, until he had to land on one of the floating islands and then leap forward. The speed went from being invisible to the naked eye to a state that ordinary people could capture. Lu Yansheng said, "I know why Hangser can fly, but he jumps around." It seems that Qin Bangcheng is the same. Zhao He glanced at Lu Yansheng and said, "Take care of yourself first, Lao Lu." As he was talking, Lu Yansheng suddenly sank, as if he was pulled by something extremely heavy, and fell straight down. Not only him, but others also felt a huge traction and fell down. However, because Liu Yunsheng consumed the most energy, even if he recovered a little, he still had some negative states. He didn't react until he landed. His body turned suddenly, his head rubbed the ground and turned over, and he almost fell to the ground. Everyone landed smoothly, expressionless, and laughing in their hearts. Tan Yaozu shouted from a distance, "Laolu, don't be distracted all the time, I was just careless for a moment, don't talk nonsense." Li Yu knew that everyone was using jokes to relieve the emotional burden brought to the body by the surrounding environment. These floating islands seem harmless to people and animals from a distance. But once you get close, you will find that every floating island is very sinister. Not only will the attraction suddenly increase, but once you enter the inner circle of the floating island, you will also feel an indescribable mental depression. This mental depression is the opposite of the image of enlightenment, but it is also a characteristic force that can have an effect on the soul. Moreover, this reminds Li Yi of the experience of encountering a silent area in the Xianshu ruins before. This mental depression is very similar. "Brothers, you said that the floating island," Li Yu was about to speak. Tan Yaozu signaled Li Yu with his eyes and said, "I know what you want to say, no need to say it, everyone can see it. At this time, even if you are talking and laughing, don't mention this matter, understand?" Li Yu understood. As expected of the pillars of mankind, with rich exploration experience, one look, one mouth, and everyone understood that these floating islands are likely to have a silent mechanism. Once you say the key words related to depression, the trap will be triggered, or you will be teleported away, or directly killed by the mechanism. At the beginning, when Li Yu was exploring the Xianshu ruins, he saw his teammates being hit several times. In short, be careful, although the ones here are very strong, we are not weak after hundreds of battles, Tan Yaozu said with a smile. Li Yu nodded. The two began to search for Guangxi's traces. Li Yu's tracking skills are perfect, and his microscopic recognition ability is extremely strong, so he can quickly confirm this. It didn't take long before he eliminated a floating island and crossed to the other side. In a blink of an eye, the two walked through more than 20 or 30 floating islands. In a position slightly in the middle, they found Guangxi's traces. Li Yu pointed to a shallow and invisible footprint and said, "It seems that Brother He's first landing point is here." Tan Yaozu observed for a moment and nodded slightly. "It does look a bit like the size of Lao He's foot, but how can you determine that this is Lao He's?" Li Yu said, "First of all, it's the size, and secondly, the depth and time of landing. It landed here about 2 hours earlier than us, which is exactly the time we spent searching and mapping twice." "You can tell the time," Tan Yaozu said in surprise. "Yes, the rate of material change is determined by its speed. I observed its rate of change from a microscopic perspective, and with a little calculation, I can confirm it." "Good fellow, I dare not think of anything else you don't know." Tan Yaozu was quite surprised. Li Yu smiled slightly. "I just happen to know this. Let's go. Let's look at the direction. Brother He should be exploring inside, but I don't know why we can't see him. Could it be that Laolu's crowmouth worked? Was he really killed by Hangsuo?" Tan Yaozu frowned. "No, we saw Hangsuo not too far away. According to the normal speed of travel here, Hangsuo arrived here at most 20 minutes earlier than us. In other words, Brother He, who arrived here 2 hours ago, probably didn't run into Hangsuo," Li Yi explained. "Of course, there is another possibility, that is, Hangsuo has already arrived here, and the reason why he stayed here is that he wanted to find something on this floating island." Chapter 370 Encounter. Under Li Yi's guidance, the two found more traces of Li Guangxi's activities. They were all very subtle, almost undetectable. But this naturally did not pose a problem for Li Yi. Whenever Tan Yaozu saw Li Yi pointing to an almost blank area for analysis, a look of surprise flashed across his face. At first, he did not believe that such a subtle thing could really reveal so many things. After all, Li Yi's analysis was too amazing. But as the two spent more time, the more floating islands they passed, the more obvious the traces became, and he more or less saw some clues. Therefore, he was more and more surprised. Finally, 32 minutes after entering the floating island, the two finally made an amazing discovery. This time the floating island had a special shape, a bit like a small pyramid. The ground was rough and full of irregular crystals. Standing on it, the soles of your feet felt a bit pierced. The two quickly walked around and saw something embedded in the back of the floating island, against the wall. There were slightly stained red dots around it, as well as some crushed meat. Looking closely, it turned out to be He Guangzi's broken arm. On the surface of the floating island, there was a stream of burning blood, as big as a bean, carrying divine power, but it had not yet solidified. There were also some residual arcs around, making slight crackling sounds. When the two recognized that it was He Guangzi's broken arm, they were shocked. The ground is full of lightning power. Did old he encounter Heng Su'er here? Tan Yaozu observed for a moment and said, moreover, the blood is so hot. Could this be the battle that happened more than 10 minutes ago? Li Yu glanced around and said, no, it must have been a battle that happened at least an hour ago. And there is no trace of Heng Su'er fighting here. Although both of them have the characteristics of the lightning sequence, there are still differences in their actual use. Brother maybe he encountered something else. His enemies may be other. Tan Yaozu frowned and said, are there any other people here? Well, such as other prisoners in Xianshan prison, Li Yu said. After all, this is the depths of Xianshan prison. Maybe some masters are located near this entrance. When they saw that this entrance was activated, they came in by the way. Tan Yaozu nodded and said, it seems that this is the reason. I remember that this floor has imprisoned several high-level Star Clan and True Saint Church people. No wonder we didn't see many other prisoners when we came in. However, if this is really the case, it will be troublesome. Li Yu said, that may not be the case. It could also be the danger inherent in this entrance. Brother he is very careful and thorough. If he finds traces of Heng Su'er on this floor, he will definitely transfer the problematic personnel to other areas in advance. After all, I only saw Brother He's special power here, but I didn't see any traces of other people, even the divinity, characteristics, or even physical movements of other races. Perhaps, this is an opponent who survives in a special form, such as a soul. Hearing this, Tan Yaozu's expression became solemn. Is there really no other movement? Li Yu shook his head. No. Is it possible that the traces were erased? For example, it is the kind of special power that can erase the traces of its own existence. Li Yu thought for a moment and said, it is possible. But judging from the traces of Brother He's activities, he is more like struggling than fighting. So he was targeted by a powerful being and wanted to strengthen his physical body. Tan Yaozu's heart trembled. Li Yu nodded slowly. Most likely, as they spoke, the two had properly put away He Guangzi's arm and froze it. Logically speaking, for a high-ranking heavenly rank warrior, although the broken limb cannot be regenerated immediately, as long as the nutrition is in place, it can be quickly restored and a new one will grow. But if the separated arm has not been completely inactivated, it is better to reattach it. After all, the consumption of vitality of the two is completely different. If the arm is reattached, ordinary people may have to worry about whether it can grow smoothly, but for their level of flesh, there is no need to worry. The two continued to set out to find Li Guangzi's trace. In a blink of an eye, another 20 minutes passed. The two people's speed was getting faster and faster. Because the traces were becoming more and more obvious, Li Yu originally needed to observe and analyze for a while, but now he only needed a glance to see where He Guangzi went. However, when they entered the deeper area of the floating island, the speed of the two slowed down. When they jumped out, the resistance from the space became greater and greater. Suddenly, the two looked at each other and became solemn. In front of them, there was a fierce sound of fighting. Boom, boom, boom. Before they found He Guangzi, they saw Heng Su'er and Qin Longchuan chasing and fighting. Their bodies were still able to maintain an extremely high-speed movement in this heavy area, constantly colliding. In this suppressed area, their battle showed a more primitive and fierce style. Only a small amount of divinity and characteristics were activated by them and used at critical moments. At other times, they stepped on the floating island with their flesh and blood, colliding and beating at high speed. However, what surprised Li Yu and Tan Yaozu was that Heng Su'er didn't know what method he used, but he didn't look like the state of being captured, suppressed, and consumed before. This guy, was he pretending before? Or did he have other means to recover? Tan Yaozu was surprised. From the scene, Heng Su'er and Qin Longchuan fought, and they were not at a disadvantage. Go up and help. The two did not hesitate, and immediately jumped up and quickly approached the battle group of the two. But just as the two approached, they seemed to be discovered by Heng Su'er. He took Qin Longchuan's punch hard, and his body suddenly shot back like a cannonball. Heng Su'er, you can't run away. Qin Longchuan flew to catch up. Tan Yaozu also quickly followed. Li Yu was about to chase him, but Tan Yaozu turned around and shouted, Li Yi, go find Lao He first. Lao Lu and Lao Zhao should be here soon. and we will be there to help them. Lao He is still waiting for you." Li Yu stopped immediately and nodded. "Okay, I will leave a message to Brother Lu and the others. You go and help first, and I will take care of this." Tanyaozu nodded, and the divine flames behind him suddenly burst out, helping him to accelerate violently in this sticky space. Whoosh! Li Yu calculated in his mind the area where Lu Yansheng and the others might appear now. Then, the divinity in his palm condensed and gathered into an energy ball. It was the skill of rubbing the divine energy cannon with his hands that he learned from He Guangzi. Although the divinity was suppressed here, it was naturally possible to temporarily withdraw it. After a moment, he finished brewing, stretched out his hand and pushed, and a divine energy cannon immediately shot in the predicted direction. Chapter 371 Capture. A hand-rubbed divine energy cannon shot over. I believe it is enough to attract the attention of Zhao He and Lu Yansheng. After Li Yu fired his cannon, he immediately stood up and jumped, shooting away. This cannon consumed a lot of him at this moment. Therefore, he did not stimulate the little remaining divinity again, but just used the power of his body purely, and kept jumping. Every time he passed a floating island, he left a conspicuous mark, which was convenient for Lu Yansheng and others to find when they caught up. At the same time, he also engraved words to indicate the direction of Hengsuer that he had calculated. Although he did not catch up, he could still judge where Hengsuer and Qin Longquan's battle group moved to based on the surrounding fluctuations. In this way, when Lu Yansheng and Zhao He rushed over, they could also quickly support them, killing two birds with one stone. At this moment, without teammates to lead the way, he used the power of his body, and his speed was even faster. Often, a glance above the floating island would immediately determine the direction of Li Guangzi. However, as Li Yu quickly tracked, he became more and more worried. Judging from the traces around, He Guangzi's situation is getting worse and worse. Moreover, as Li Yu tracked him, he gradually drew a picture of He Guangzi's specific battle situation in his mind. It is likely that the soul that has survived for a long time in Henshin prison happened to meet Brother He, forcibly invaded, and wanted to revive. This point has been basically confirmed in Li Yu's quick search. Although it is also very likely that it is other prisoners in Henshin prison. But from the various records that Li Yu has checked before, the prisoners imprisoned in this level of Henshin prison basically do not have such a powerful soul. Therefore, he is more inclined to be an ancient soul inside Henshin prison. And this judgment was also confirmed 21 minutes after he and Tanyaozu separated. Because he felt that there was a trace of suspicious breath in the floating island. This is the thunderbolt produced by the soul's thoughts and the rejection of the world. Li Yu has witnessed this thunderbolt in the heritage ruins, which originated from the moment when the mysterious thoughts were removed, touched the world, and were rejected by the world. Feeling this familiar yet strange breath, Li Yu frowned, kept speeding up, and approached. The path he took was getting farther and farther away from Qin Longquan Hengsu's battle group. They were in the east, and he was in the west. Another 15 minutes passed. Boom! A shocking thunderous sound came over, and Li Yu's eardrums vibrated. This time Li Yu was well prepared, so it was not so uncomfortable. Moreover, the spatial viscosity here is not a joke, it is really powerful. Even the amazing thunder has lost its previous power. It seems that this stagnant space may be the reason why the Mecha Phantom did not attack again. The distance between the floating islands around him gradually increased. He could no longer jump directly with his physical body, and had to rely on the divine push to reach the next floating island. This undoubtedly increased his consumption a lot. Fortunately, he finally saw He Guangzi. In front of him, dark clouds gathered, and purple lightning continued to bombard, which was huge and fierce, and breathtaking. In the void, the dark clouds were at least 10 kilometers in range. And the dancing electric snakes were also unusually thick and had a frightening aura. Li Yu looked intently, and saw that the center of the electric snakes was He Guangzi, who had lost one arm. His hair and beard were all charred, and the outer layer of his skin also had a burning smell like barbecue. He didn't have any protection, nor did he use the divine shield. He just used the divinity to flow inside and outside the body, and then used his body to bear these lightning? Li Yu's heart moved. Could it be that Lao He was using these thunders to fight against a foreign soul that invaded him? Or did the foreign soul deliberately attract thunder to try to kill He Guangzi's soul? He flew close to the surroundings and shouted, "Brother He, answer my question. Do you remember what you taught me when we first met?" Although Li Yu wanted to lend a helping hand as soon as possible, before that, he had to confirm the enemy in us first. It would be embarrassing if he accidentally helped the wrong party. He Guangzi heard Li Yi's voice transmission from afar, and he looked up while carrying the thunder wash, and his eyes suddenly lit up. Li Yi, you're just in time. Come and help suppress the thunder. Use your characteristics to freeze the thundercloud. Li Yi did not move, but repeated, Brother He, before solving your problem, answer my question first. I need to confirm whether you are still controlling the body. He Guangzi shouted, my life is at stake. If you delay me any longer, I will die. Li Yi narrowed his eyes slightly. This foreign soul, he didn't even act. He didn't say anything, and the divinity outside his body suddenly erupted, accelerating and shooting. Boom. His body suddenly flashed, and he directly activated the special characteristics to dissolve the sticky force of the surrounding space. At this moment, his speed reached a very amazing level. In the blink of an eye, he appeared behind He Guangzi. A punch came down. The moment he appeared was the interval of thunder, and Li Yi's grasp of the timing was very accurate. After this punch, He Guang's back was hit by Li Yi's punch, and his body flew out of the dark cloud circle. Li Yi's punch used the shock skill to overlap the special characteristics, allowing He Guangzi to break the surrounding special stickiness and quickly escape. However, this was a huge dark cloud covering an area of nearly 10 kilometers. Even Li Yi could not get He Guangzi out of it in one breath with his punch. After he threw a punch, another divine power exploded behind him, taking him forward quickly. Whoosh! He used all his strength to stimulate the special characteristics, and his speed was even faster. In a blink of an eye, he caught up to He Guang's front and punched him again. This punch still hit the back of Li Guangzi's head, using the shock skill to bring soft power, as well as the freezing characteristics, to directly freeze the stunned head. Whoosh! Under the huge force, He Guangzi's body, whose brain was frozen, flew out of the dark cloud again. Li Yi's method was simple and rough. Since the majority of He Guangzi's body was filled with external thoughts, he would not be polite. After all, even if this foreign soul is strong, it still needs to rely on the physical body to exert its abilities and is limited by the physical body. As long as you control Li Guangzi's physical body, you don't have to worry about it turning upside down. The next moment, Li Yi's figure appeared again, and he punched out again, pushing He Guangzi away before the lightning shot out. Whoosh! The lightning shot into the air and almost hit He Guangzi's body. Li Yi flashed again, accelerated forward, and punched again. After doing this several times, He Guangzi was soon knocked out of the range covered by the dark cloud. However, just as He Guangzi was pushed out of the range of the dark cloud, Li Yi was surprised to find that the dark cloud suddenly spread out and extended towards them. In the blink of an eye, He Guangzi was covered again. This foreign soul has not been completely frozen. Seeing this scene, Li Yi immediately realized the core problem. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelis. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 372 Fierce. When Li Yi realized the problem, suddenly, boom! Electric light suddenly exploded from He Guangzi's body. Accompanied by a terrifying muffled thunder, Li Yi was suddenly shaken apart by the huge force and flew outward. Not only that, there were also extremely fierce lightning snakes pouring down from the sky. These lightning snakes covered a wide area. In just a moment, Li Yi had nowhere to escape and could only take it head-on. The divine shield and absolute fluid outside his body emerged at the same time, and the blue light covered his whole body. Boom! 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 Each of these lightning snakes had a defense-breaking power comparable to that of an AL-level mecha. Li Yi's consumption was not shallow, and in just a moment, the divine shield was broken. Even the absolute fluid outside his body was mostly dissipated, and residual electricity continued to bombard his body. Fortunately, he himself was also proficient in controlling the characteristics of lightning and constantly diverted the current that penetrated into his body, so he did not die immediately. Not only that, his body was strong at the moment. After a moment's rest, he immediately retreated to the side and quickly left the range of the thunder. If he continued to be bombarded by these thunders, his already exhausted body might not be able to hold on for that long. At the same time, these lightning snakes not only covered Li Yi, but also hit He Guangzi's body. With a sizzling sound, He Guangzi's frozen head quickly thawed. Not only that, He Guangzi's body shape also seemed to be constantly changing under the bombardment of thunder and lightning, transforming into a completely different creature. In the blink of an eye, He Guangzi's body showed some characteristics of the Third Era armored man. Li Yu glanced at this scene and was surprised. According to the records, the Second and Third Eras were both the eras of armored men. However, the armored men of the Second Era had more human characteristics, while the armored men of the Third Era had more characteristics of arthropods and insects. He had already learned about this in the human database. Is this a resurrector from the Third Era? Brother, his body genes have been transformed. Li Yu dodged the thunder that was chasing him while taking the time to observe the physical condition of Li Guangzi. Although he wanted to interrupt the physical transformation of Li Guangzi, he was unable to protect himself at the moment and could not make more moves. He did not expect that this resurrector from the Third Era was so powerful that he could still deal with him while taking over He Guangzi's body. There's still a chance. This guy can't control the thunder all the time. There must be a breathing interval. What I have to do is wait for this opportunity, burst out instantly, and continue to interrupt this guy. Thinking of this, Li Yu was determined in his heart. The special characteristics were activated, constantly dissolving the special viscosity, maintaining a certain speed, and consuming more of the opponent's attention. He still had a burst skill that had not been activated. He only needed to wait until the right time to burst out instantly. In a blink of an eye, 5 minutes had passed. The two were still fighting, and the dark clouds in the sky kept thundering. However, Li Yu's prediction was amazing. When he sensed where the ions gathered around the dark clouds, he stopped suddenly and accelerated sharply to shake off the thunder. His body was like a floating leaf, flickering constantly under the dark clouds. Although the thunder was dead, the controller was still the Third Era resurrectionist. As long as his judgment could be interfered with, the thunder would not hit him when it shot down. Relying on this step, Li Yu could also greatly consume the opponent's divinity and mental power, slowing down his transformation of Laohe. However, Li Yu was still at an absolute disadvantage on the scene. His consumption was increasing, and he might not be able to outstrip his opponent. This place was thousands of kilometers away from the battle group of Qin Longquan and others, and came to the other side of the Enlightenment Mountain. Within the range of this sticky void, if they wanted to alarm Qin Longquan and others with their movements, they would either have to try their luck or find them after they finished fighting. Moreover, Li Yu had no chance to rub the divine energy cannon with his hands and ask Qin Longquan for help. As for quantum communication, this was inside the ruins, and the quantum signal would also be suppressed, making it difficult to transmit. The situation was very unfavorable. At this moment, He Guangzi's body had been transformed by more than half, and most of the surface of his skin had turned into fine scales, emitting a faint cold light. Moreover, from time to time, there were violent thunderbolts bombarding him, as if helping him to suppress He Guangzi. Obviously, both sides were racing against time. Once whoever completed his action first or whoever couldn't hold on first, the situation would change instantly. In the high-speed flash, Li Yu tried to dissolve the lightning that had entered his body with the unfinished Zilu Shen Shen method, and it actually had some effect on strengthening the body. On the contrary, the Xiangang method and the Heiwang method, after a little testing, did not have much effect. He immediately thought, I seem to be able to use lightning to strengthen the body, but unfortunately, the Zilu Shen Shen method has not been completely perfected, and there is only a preliminary framework. This thought flashed through his mind. Now even if he wanted to try it, he didn't have the spare energy. After all, strengthening the body needs to be combined with a nutrient solution for the best effect. If not, the body will consume the foundation of the body. Even if it can be strengthened, it is a tree without roots, and it is difficult to have a long-lasting effect. The most urgent task is to seize the opportunity and interrupt the opponent's transformation process. Now Laohe is probably still salvageable. If he delays for a while, he will probably be completely finished. Humanity will have another great enemy. Time came to the 7th minute when the two sides were fighting hand to hand. The dark clouds above were much lighter in color. Obviously, with a continuous bombardment of that person, even if the opponent is strong, the dark clouds are inevitably overconsumed. Suddenly, the thunder rhythm of the Third Era resurrectionist bombarding Li Yi's side had a significant stagnation. Did He Guangzi explode and resist the invasion? Li Yu had been waiting for this, and the 3.2 burst skill and 2.0 brain super lifting technique suddenly exploded. At the moment when the Y gas outside the body had not yet dispersed. The special characteristic suddenly turned into an amazing thin line in front of him, forming a special channel connecting He Guangxi's body and himself. Whoosh! His body flashed suddenly, and through this special channel, he appeared in front of He Guangxi's body in a flash at an astonishing speed, in milliseconds, and hit the body that had been transformed to at least 70% with a penetrating ice fist. Crack! He Guangxi's transformation quickly stopped with the absolute freezing power. There was no freezing on his body, but the flesh and blood under the skin were obviously frozen. However, Li Yu knew that this third-era resurrectionist must have a backup plan, so he froze the inside of He Guangxi's body with a full-strength punch, and at the same time pinched He Guangxi's head with his palm, and the microelectric characteristics and deformations suddenly broke out. Zzz. With his current strength, 80-nanometer microscopic perception has already initially possessed the basic conditions for directly transforming human genes. He wants to directly change He Guangxi's body back. Chapter 373 Choice. Not only did he need to transform Lao He's body back, but he also needed to record the genes of the third era. Although he could only record part of the information within the 60-nanometer range, it could still destroy the other party to some extent. Therefore, when Li Yi held the head of this body in his palm, he used the power of subtle vibration to quickly defeat the changes that were obviously not human genes. This process was very dangerous. If he was not careful, it would be possible to destroy Li Guangxi's body completely. But Li Yi still did it without hesitation, because if he didn't do this and delayed the time, Lao He would be even worse. Moreover, now he also needed to use nano-sensors to record the genetic information that belonged to Lao He. If Lao He had really been completely transformed, he could still retain Lao He's genetic information this time, and then use human cloning technology to restore his body. The worst result was that he had to take back Lao He's soul this time. Boom! The terrifying power of subtle vibration was injected into this body by him with a method of penetrating vibration. In a visible moment, some of the scales on the body began to dissipate, turning into the common flesh and blood skin of humans. Seeing this, Li Yi's eyes moved slightly. It really worked. The transformation of the opponent's body was indeed mainly based on changing genes. The genetic information that the opponent could change was deeper than his own, with a minimum accuracy of 20 nanometers. But within the accuracy range of 60 nanometers, the transformation power that Li Yi could drive with his body was obviously higher than that of his opponent. Li Yi made a slight test and immediately understood that this third-era resurrector was definitely using the power of characteristics, which was completely different from his own method. The two sides, one with deep accuracy and the other with great power, soon stalemated together. In the void, He Guangxi's body was like being constantly pressed on the fast-forward and retract keys. Sometimes the body suddenly deformed, and sometimes it quickly faded and changed. In a blink of an eye, it was deadlocked for almost a minute. Li Yi continued to increase the power of the operation and summed up his experience. For a while, he was evenly matched with the opponent. Not only that, as time passed, the characteristics of the armored man on He Guangxi's body became less and less. Although the two sides fought evenly, He Guangxi's own genes naturally recovered strongly. Without the resuscitation, they also recovered rapidly. However, Li Yi was not happy for too long. The next second, thunder came roaring. Boom! It seems that although most of this body was frozen by Li Yi, the resuscitator still found a way to control the thunder with his soul and quickly launched other counterattacks. Li Yi's body was shocked and he could only avoid it. He had already consumed a lot of physical strength and divinity. If he wanted to resist, he would definitely lose. Whoosh! 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 Thunder followed like a shadow and kept chasing. Li Yi's body flashed and moved at high speed. In the void, another thunder struck down and hit He Guangxi's body. The freezing power left by Li Yi before was quickly dissipated by this thunder. Li Yi was not panicked. At this moment, He Guangxi's transformation process had been reversed a lot, and he had more time to spend with this resuscitator. Not only that, he saw the divine energy in his hand gathered into a ball, and finally found a gap and shot it out. Swoosh! This divine energy cannon shot out of the dark cloud range at an astonishing speed and shot towards the position of the battle group. He calculated. He didn't shoot before because He Guangxi's situation had a higher priority. Now that the transformation process has reversed, he has more ease and can naturally squeeze out the divinity to summon teammates while dodging. Facing an opponent with unknown trump cards like the Resurrectionist, no matter how confident he is, he will not let down his guard. Moreover, He is not done yet. One divine energy cannon is not enough, so he fired twice, each in a different direction. As long as the calculated position does not deviate too far, these distances should be enough for his teammates to realize his call for help. After firing these 3 shots, the divinity that his divine gene can stimulate has been squeezed out to the last drop. Only a small part of the last part of the life-saving reserve stored in the flesh remains. Without these divinities, he can't even activate the 3.2 burst skills. In this way, his strength has dropped significantly, and his opponents will inevitably see the flaws. Therefore, after firing these 3 shots, he did not rush to step forward immediately to quickly reverse the transformation of the resurrected. He knew that as long as Guangxi's transformation was not completely completed, this resurrected person with the strength of a demigod would not be able to exert his full strength. After all, no matter how strong the soul is, if there is no material foundation in the world to rely on, it is limited. The most classic example is the mysterious thought encountered in the Heritage Ruins. Compared with the one in front of him, the strength is only higher, not weaker, but still can only control some cannon fodder to interfere with their strategy at the time. They even had to control the entire Northern Division and transform into a starship to jump away to avoid the pursuit of humans. However, although Li Yi felt relieved for a while, in this sticky space, he still had to constantly predict the reverse direction of lightning and flash quickly to avoid it, and the pressure was still not small. In a blink of an eye, 3 minutes had passed. The signs of Guangxi's body reversed by Li Yi had once again turned into the appearance of the third-era armored man, and the degree was obviously deeper. It's been so long and the reinforcements haven't come yet, it's not possible that one Hensor can hold back the 4 of them, right? Li Yi frowned while dodging. Now, he has to make a decision. Should he wait or burst out the remaining little reserve divinity, fight again, and delay for a while? If it's the former, he can be worry-free. But if Guangxi has another minute, it is estimated that he will be completely transformed. At that time, with his 60-nanometer precision transformation method, it will be more difficult to reverse Guangxi. Moreover, when Guangxi is completely transformed, his soul will probably be completely written off and directly extinguished. Only if the original body still exists, can Guangxi's soul be saved. But if he bursts out the remaining little reserve divinity, if his teammates don't actually receive his signal, and their battle group has been taken to farther place by Hensor, then his delaying strategy will accelerate their defeat. The lack of information makes it obviously much more difficult for him to make a decision this time. This is different from his absolute control over the battlefield before. This time, even if he could absolutely control his own battle group, he could not control when his teammates would arrive. No matter which step he took wrong, the result would not be good. Damn it, at this moment, Li Yi once again longed for the immortality divine gene. If he could have more immortality divine genes, he would have stronger endurance. Damn it, last fight, if the last divinity can't wait for teammates, run away again. Li Yi's eyes condensed, and he began to stimulate another part of the spare divinity stored in his body. This was the extra divinity reserve he obtained in the Infinite Spire, which was an additional means possessed by a few people who had used the Infinite Spire. Chapter 374 Control. As the reserve divinity was used, the divine flame outside Li Yi's body suddenly flashed and turned into a huge thrust. Whoosh! His body disappeared directly in this sticky space and flashed again in front of Guangxi's body. However, he flashed away this time, and the resurrected seemed to have expected it. At that moment, he suddenly opened the cold eyes of this temporary body, and a cold and cruel smile appeared at the corner of his mouth. He lightly raised the arm that had not been fully transformed, and suddenly punched back. Li Yi didn't expect that he had always predicted others, but this time he would be rushed to predict. The body just flashed out within milliseconds, and saw half-human and half-armored strange hands suddenly blasted. Close at hand, the fist was soaring. This guy definitely hasn't mastered the realm of subtlety. Where did this divine will come from? Could it be that he has mastered other ways to refine divine will? Li Yi was slightly shocked. Such a punch actually carried the extremely fierce power of divine will, which was extremely magical and amazing. This strong divine will is definitely more than 10 times, or even dozens of times, stronger than all the divine will moves that Li Yi has ever seen. Just one punch has the powerful power to crush time and space with divine will. Seeing such a punch coming, Li Yi's pupils shrank sharply to prevent the fist from burning his optic nerves through his pupils. What a fatal blow! This divine will is so fierce and sharp, Like a sharp knife needle, even the terrifying fluctuations transmitted through the air can cause great harm to people. Moreover, it also has the function of intimidating the soul and shocking the enemy, which is very effective in combat scenes. Fortunately, Li Yu was only shocked in his heart, and was not frightened by the powerful divine will in this punch. After all, he has experienced hundreds of battles, and facing such a crisis, he will instinctively take defensive actions. And the fighting instinct that has been tempered by thousands of hammers also let him know that this punch cannot be taken hard, and must be avoided as the main method. Avoid the real and hit the virtual. At the moment when the punch was about to approach, Li Yu's body seemed to have lost any space for displacement. In other words, due to the inertia of the forward rush, he could not move back immediately, and could only dodge to the side. It was also obvious that if he did not start the rapid acceleration immediately within this short distance, he would be killed immediately by the Resurrector. The situation had reached this point, and it was already quite obvious. Just when the fist was only a millimeter away from Li Yu's skin. Suddenly, Li Yu's chest suddenly deformed, and shook to one side, and he avoided the punch very thrillingly. However, this punch was domineering after all. Even if it did not actually touch his body, the divine will that was transmitted seemed to be astonishingly hot, and it stung his body all at once. Li Yu gritted his teeth. Since he avoided this punch, it was his turn. Boom. He flashed here. How could he not have any achievements? He endured the amazing stinging pain brought by the divine will, and punched the armored man who had been transformed for the most part with a subtle force. Kalala. In an instant, the armored man was successfully frozen by Li Yu again, and the transformation process in his body stagnated again. However, Li Yu knew that this short freeze would never work and could only delay the time for a moment. Immediately, he repeated his old trick and pinched He Guangxi's body with his fist again, reversing its transformation. The moment he touched the opponent's head, dark clouds gathered in the sky, and it seemed that thunder was brewing and would be shut out at any time. However, Li Yu finally took the lead in this wave. Not only did he forcibly reverse He Guangxi's physical transformation, but he also added a trick and boldly changed the form of Li Guangxi's brain color. This wave can be said to be a plan to cut off the firewood from the bottom of the pot. There is no doubt that most of the power of this resuscitator is invading and transforming He Guangxi's brain, while He Guangxi is fighting in the battlefield of the brain. It is the battle between the two sides in the brain that makes this body only able to control lightning to additionally enhance his transformation and defend against others. Originally, Li Yu was afraid to use his weapon and just froze it, and did not take the initiative to change He Guangxi's brain. But the previous battle has proved that freezing the brain cannot cut off the power of the resuscitator. He still has the ability to control thunder to unfreeze. Although this made Li Yu think that this resuscitator was invulnerable. But after thinking about it, he realized that the other party was still afraid of having his brain frozen. It was just that he had a backup plan. At the moment of freezing, he quickly gave the command of thunder and delayed the control, so that he could quickly thaw and avoid being frozen. Therefore, Li Yu also judged that he must further interfere with He Guangxi's brain, hinder the effective transmission of the instructions in the other party's brain, and then further freeze it, so that he could win more time. Although if he did not do it well, he might accidentally kill He Guangxi. But now the situation has reached a point of life and death, so there is nothing to worry about. The result also surprised Li Yi. When he activated the deformation characteristics and tyrannically transformed He Guangxi's brain, the condensation of the dark cloud and lightning above his head slowed down significantly. It is true. This resuscitator still has to rely on Brother He's brain to control the external thunder characteristics. Li Yu made the right bet after all. As he continued to operate, the microscopic structure of He Guangxi's brain continued to change dramatically. The soul of the Resurrector seemed to be out of control and completely lost the ability to continue to transform He Guangxi's body. Not only that, the lightning that was gathering also dissipated out of thin air. Li Yu did not relax his vigilance. He knew that his risky gamble was only half successful. He quickly took out a thought steel nail, condensed a thought steel seal, aimed at He Guangxi's head, and pierced it. Swish. The position where this thought steel seal pierced was exactly where he judged He Guangxi's soul was based on microelectric induction. This piercing was not to kill Lao He, but to wrap up his soul to prevent his soul from losing its foundation in the world when his brain was drastically deformed, and constantly weakening and eventually dying. In the short time he had just madly transformed Lao He's brain, Lao He's soul was already very fragile, and the soul waves were very subtle. Even if Li Yu couldn't see the soul at present, he could judge it based on this microelectric induction. After doing this step, Li Yu made another punch, and the freezing power penetrated, completing the freezing on the basis of this brain transformation. Then, he quickly made a move, using the characteristics of lightning to divert the thundercloud in the sky and bombard him. Before, he was passively bombarding and could not control the strength. But this thundercloud lost control, and the energy was still there. He directly used it to strengthen his body and merged it into his body in a small range, so he did not need to bear such a large consumption. Instead, it could stimulate the body to continue to strengthen. Although this would consume the physical foundation he had accumulated before, at this moment, the enemy was temporarily controlled, so he naturally felt relieved and could try carefully. About 5 minutes later, the energy of this thundercloud, which had little remaining energy, was completely squeezed out by him, and there was no drop of arc, and it slowly dissipated. The dark cloud above his head also completely faded. At this point, Li Yu finally breathed a sigh of relief. In this way, even if the third-era resurrectionist wakes up again, he is not afraid that the other party can kill him back. After all, without the thundercloud, the resurrectionist lacks too much control and means of killing the enemy. Moreover, during this 5-minute attempt, he actually made some gratifying progress in the thunder and lightning body forging achieved by using the cooperative transformation method. Chapter 375 Thunder Forging. Just now, he used a crude version of the Kolaw transmutation method to try to transform lightning, and found that the effect was quite good. In just 5 minutes, the strength of his body had improved a little bit, and he was getting closer to the limit of the strongest body. Not only that, he also had a surprising discovery. Under the guidance of his subtle strength, the densely filled lightning constantly stimulated cells and even gene chains in the body. No, it was more like charging than stimulation. It was like the transformation of divine radiation into hypermeability waves, filling in and filling every cell, making the cells suddenly filled with energy, becoming full and shiny. Like dry grapes, reversing into water grapes. This process was very wonderful. It was more wonderful than his previous stimulation of cells with a bodybuilding method. Human cells generally use chemical energy to generate power. In this process, the main organelles that play a role are mitochondria. In the early evolutionary history of humans, the emergence of mitochondria was also hailed as a turning point in evolution. In many of Li Yu's parallel memories, there are even science fiction concepts written around mitochondria parasitizing humans. Very magical. However, the energy produced by mitochondria is only enough for ordinary people. But for humans who have become evolvers, heavenly beings, or even strong people, the original mitochondria are naturally not enough. But with the transformation of the human body by divine radiation and the generation of divine genes, human cells have undergone a wonderful transformation. Humans still don't understand the principle of this wonderful transformation. Only through various experiences and the development of relics, have they gradually found the path to the strongest. Until now, there has still been no human's first demigod-level strongman. In terms of top power, humans are undoubtedly far away from the top races of aliens. Because of the excessive reliance on divinity, neither humans nor the mainstream races of aliens have developed a completely new evolutionary system. The entire divine system is more like an external force, rather than a force that all intelligent life can build by itself. Li Yu has also seen various records in the Gourdman's notebook that prove the incompatibility of divine creatures and intelligent creatures. At the human level, the role of mitochondria is also insignificant for those who evolved by receiving divine radiation. Whether it is physical strength or divine power, they all rely on the divine genes and divine nuclei generated by divine radiation to generate power. But at this time, when Li Yu tried to introduce the power of thunder and lightning into his body with a rough version of the coordinated bodybuilding method, he found that the mitochondria could unexpectedly bear these thunder and lightning energies. He didn't know if this was an accident. Was it because of the specialness of the coordinated bodybuilding method, or because of his own specialness? But in any case, his several bodybuilding stimulations made the cells grow stronger, and the mitochondrial strength increased, which was probably useful. At least, in his previous subtle perception, before he began to discover the bodybuilding method, the mitochondria were not that big. Especially when he had the physical strength of a half step to the strongest, this transformation was more obvious. Interesting. The infinite spire can transform the human body into a divine storage device, and my bodybuilding method may also be able to transform the mitochondria into an electrical storage device. Liu clenched his fists slightly and found that with this wave of thunder and lightning charging the mitochondria, his physical strength actually recovered a lot. Although the recovery was not too much. But this was only 5 minutes, and he was still under the condition that his divinity and power were suppressed by this viscous space. If he were in the outside world, perhaps he could use the high-intensity lightning to quickly recover from the state of being exhausted. I just don't know what the effect this time has to do with the lightning characteristics of this resuscitator. Liu stood in the void, lost in thought. On the side, He Guangxi's body had been completely frozen by him. 3 layers inside and 3 layers outside, tightly. He thought for a while, and simply grabbed the ice block and ran to the nearest floating island to wait. Logically, the people who asked for help should have arrived long ago. If they didn't, it was probably because the signal was not transmitted correctly. Or, they had an accident. It is unlikely that the whole group was wiped out, and it is estimated that they were trapped. Liu did not rush to find someone, but sat down on the floating island and began to recover his physical strength and divinity. Now even if he went there, he would be cannon fodder without power. Moreover, although this resuscitator had been sealed by him for the time being, it was not certain whether he had any other backup. Therefore, the most important thing is to recover quickly. However, their supplies were basically left in the cockpit of the divine Mecha, and the supplies they carried with them were basically used up. Now, they can only rely on killing time and part of their body reserves to recover. After all, he has not yet achieved ship transformation, and there is no way to absorb the free energy in the void universe to recover his body. The only way to replenish his body on a daily basis is to eat. Fortunately, there is now a new version of the Thunder and Lightning Body Forging method, which is a modified version of the cooperative transformation method. It can more or less continue to absorb the free electric energy in the space and improve recovery. But the efficiency is much slower than being bombarded by thunder and lightning. Fortunately, the Resurrector just gathered so many thunderclouds and released so much free electricity, so he is not worried about the amount. He closed his eyes and began to try. There are 2 goals for the attempt. One is to optimize the new Thunder and Lightning Body Forging method to improve the efficiency of body forging and charging. The other goal is to use it to recover to perfect state as soon as possible. In this way, time passed slowly in his attempt. 2 hours later, the surrounding free electricity has been almost absorbed by him, not a drop left. His physical state at this moment has also recovered to 80% of its original state. The reserve of divinity has also been initially restored to 30%. There is no way this place suppresses divinity more than the physical body. In addition, after 2 hours of thunder and lightning body forging, his physical body should be close to entering the full physical body. It is estimated that only an opportunity is needed, or another large-scale and high-intensity thunder and lightning bombardment, or the perfect optimization of the cooperative body forging method. But it's been so long, and they haven't found us yet. Liu opened his eyes, glanced around, and his heart sank. It seems that this wave of entering the Guotao Divine Mountain is much more dangerous than the last time. It seems that the reason why it was so smooth the last time should have something to do with the washing golden light. The entrances to the Earth and the Moon are probably very special and much more troublesome than other entrances. Liu stood up, picked up He Guangxi's physical body ice block, moved his body, leaped forward, and left a floating island under his feet. End of this chapter. Thank you very much for reaching the end. Don't forget to like. Looking for more exclusive content and immediate access? Subscribe to our Patreon. Remember, every like, subscription, or donation encourages us to continue. Thanks to everyone. See you in the next video.